Chapter 1451, Refusal 2. I'm hopping to gather everybody's power to resist the heavens. Senior. Su Ping stared at the humanoid goddess and said, "Although I couldn't help when you encountered the heavens, believe me, I can certainly help if you encounter them again and you let me know." The woman smiled derisively. "That won't be necessary. Me and my clansmen will deal with them on our own. We don't intend to ask for anyone's help, nor will we provide it. Everything is ant-like in front of the heavens. I can understand them. As for your proposal, haha, you're hilariously cute." Su Ping nodded. "You're right. Everyone who has met the heavens knows how formidable they are. Nobody would be willing to take risks and sacrifice themselves. However, we must not forget the heavens' insult. We must avenge the people who died because of them, blood for blood. You're just a mere hyperenergy creature, and you think you can challenge the heavens. Ridiculous." The woman sneered and continued, "You were eliminated by the heavens in your most powerful age. What can you do now? Even if all the surviving species join forces, they're not as strong as the ones who lived during the Age of Chaos. You're nothing if you're not a sorcerer ancestor. Who knows how many sorcerer ancestors are still out there?" "I do," Su Ping replied. "I'm aware of the sorcerer ancestors, and I'm planning to forge an alliance with them." "Looks like your universe really took a beating. Do you have no one better to act as a diplomat?" said the woman indifferently. "Do you think you're strong enough to meet a sorcerer ancestor? Are you worthy?" Su Ping said, "Not all the sorcerer ancestors are that inaccessible. Strength is not the only thing that matters. I believe that our similar experiences will give us the same faith and determination." "Naive." The woman sneered once more, then wore a nonchalant expression. "I don't want to waste any more time on you. Get out of here right now. My clan will never get involved in the war, not for any reason. Don't even think about it. You'll be forever buried here if you don't go." Su Ping gazed at her. The resolution, indifference, and pride in her eyes made him realize that words were useless. Some people could be convinced with words, while others would only be convinced with strength. "I won't force you to join the war effort. However, can you allow me and my compatriots to settle here for a while?" asked Su Ping. The woman frowned and asked, "How many are there?" "Not many." The woman thought for a moment and said, "You have to tell me how you escaped from the monster outside and snuck in." The light in her eyes was a telltale sign. That information was the true reason she was willing to talk to him for such a long time. Otherwise, she would have killed him long before, considering her determination and disdain. "Sorry, there's nothing I can say," said Su Ping. Since it was impossible to negotiate without interests, he could only drop his sincere attitude and simply negotiate. The woman gazed at Su Ping and said, "Do you know that I only need a thought to kill you?" "You're welcome to try, Senior." Su Ping stared back at her without any fear in his eyes. The woman didn't expect him to be that bold. His eyes were genuinely clear and fearless. She slowly recovered from a temporary daze. After a long time of being silent, she said, "All right, I'll think about it. Still, it's an important matter, so I have to discuss this with other people." "You're not the only Selviga in this place. That is correct." Su Ping said, "Then, can I roam around while you discuss?" "Sorry, but no," said the woman. "This is our territory. Even if we accept your request to stay, you can only be active in a limited range. Do you understand?" Su Ping could only acknowledge her conditions. "Senior, there must be other settlements with survivors beyond your green glass, right?" asked Su Ping. "How do you communicate with each other?" Light flashed in the woman's eyes. She said, "You know a lot of stuff. Did you go beyond the green glass?" "No, is the monster outside one of the heavens?" asked Su Ping. "No, but they're domesticated by them," said the woman. "Although I don't know how you got here, you'd better not go anywhere. I'll let you know when we reach a consensus." She then spoke to one of the humanoid god emperors. "Take him to my palace. He cannot leave without my permission." "Am I going to be imprisoned?" asked Su Ping with a smile. "Too many people dream of entering my palace," said the woman indifferently. Su Ping smiled, acting compliant. He soon left with the god emperor. Soon after Su Ping left, one of the remaining god warriors felt compelled to ask, Selvega, why didn't you execute him? The woman replied indifferently, the Chaos clan is the most ancient of all. They had sorcerer ancestors. It would be impossible for the kid to sneak in without the help of an expert or even a sorcerer ancestor. After all, not all of their clan members died in that battle. Sorcerer ancestors cannot be killed unless... She paused as she talked, as if terrified of a certain existence she didn't even want to mention. She then shook her head and said, keep an eye on him and don't let him make an opening on the green glass. He can probably run away fairly easily if the monster breaks in, but we would have to bear the consequences. Yes, we should bide our time and not make a decision until we meet his compatriots. A cold glint flashed in the woman's eyes. In the woman's palace, the place was magnificent to an extreme. There was metal fluid everywhere, stretching out in an awfully complicated way. Su Ping followed the blue humanoid to this place and looked around, only to find that the guards were sizing him up curiously. It was obvious that they had never seen any outsiders. How many Selvega goddesses do you have here? Su Ping asked the blue humanoid curiously. The blue humanoid frowned, acting vigilant. Why do you ask? He was really cautious after learning that Su Ping was an invader. He then realized why Selvega didn't execute Su Ping on the spot. It's just a random question, don't be nervous, Su Ping smiled. Him? The blue humanoid remained silent, simply ignoring the guest. The Selvega are superior beings of your clan. Are you afraid that I'd be plotting against them? They're so strong that no plots would ever work on them, don't you think? Said Su Ping. The blue humanoid raised his eyebrows. Of course. But since you asked, I can't tell you anything. I might have told you if you hadn't asked. What a paradox. Had I not asked, why would you say anything? Su Ping shook his head with a smile. Although he didn't receive direct answers, he had just found one. The guy didn't deny that the Selvega were superior beings in his clan. That placed ancestral gods as the top on that planet. There were no sorcerer ancestors. That made sense, given that sorcerer ancestors were born in chaos. It was hard for anything to reach that level through cultivation. That was an endowment you were born with. Several people flew over while the pair talked. They were all god emperors. I heard that an invader showed up. Let me see what he looks like. Is he the monster lurking beyond the green glass? Several figures appeared and looked at Su Ping curiously. The latter found it hard to tell those aliens apart, as they all looked the same in his eyes. He could only distinguish them by their different auras. Looks like he's a member of the Chaos clan, the source of all clans my mother often mentions, said a girl all of a sudden. That's right, said the blue humanoid escorting Su Ping, nodding. He seemed to be acting awfully respectful before the girl. Chapter 1452, The First Ally Won. What is my mother going to do to him? Asked the girl telepathically. The Selvega asked me to bring him here and watch over him. Watch over him. Maybe my mother is planning to find his backer. He passed through the green glass. If the invaders like him are malicious, they might lure the monsters in. The girl was deep in thought, her eyes glittering. She stopped speaking telepathically. She looked down at Su Ping and asked, Member of the Chaos clan, do you care to spar with me? Huh? Su Ping was rather surprised. A sparring invitation on their first encounter. This girl is rather competitive. Sorry, I'm not interested. Su Ping shook his head and declined. Is the Chaos clan so cowardly? The girl frowned, not expecting Su Ping to turn her down. Such an attitude was inconceivable in her clan. Not cowardly, just uninterested, said Su Ping helplessly. I'm here to establish an alliance with you, not to cause trouble. Humph, weaklings don't get to be our allies, said the girl after a snort. Well, Su Ping was downright speechless. He couldn't argue back. He said, I heard that you're hiding here from the monsters beyond the sky. Since I was able to sneak in, I can certainly break through your skis. That's not enough to prove my strength. The onlookers showed slight changes in their expressions. Su Ping had spoken of their greatest fear. The girl snorted and said, Who knows how you snuck in? You can only tell how strong a person is after you fight them. Besides, I'm interested in the battle techniques of the Chaos Clan. Fine, Su Ping relented. Since he wanted an alliance, displaying his strength was on the list. She smiled with glittering lips after seeing that Su Ping was on board. Come to our holy arena. Don't worry, I won't kill you. I won't kill you either, said Su Ping. The girl raised her eyebrows but didn't reply. She tore an opening in the void and took Su Ping to a special time and space found in a terrain behind the palace. There were special devices and gems which made it look like a unique small world. Please follow me. All right. Led by the girl, everybody stepped into the holy arena. It was more of a small universe than an arena. It was so vast that everybody could fight freely. Come on. The girl looked at Su Ping with anticipation in her eyes. Her body was emitting a flickering blue light. Ladies first, said Su Ping. Is that a thing? Yes, it's considered as part of the etiquette in our civilization. Males are generally stronger than females in your civilization. It's more like weaklings first, right? You think I'm weak? The girl raised her eyebrows. Her tongue was really quick. Su Ping didn't really know what to say. Communicating across civilizations is indeed difficult. Su Ping heaved a sigh in his heart, then said, I didn't mean to offend you. I'll start then. Bring it on. The girl slightly raised her head. Su Ping flashed and disappeared from the spot. All the times and spaces were trembling when Su Ping's figure passed by. He was absolutely unpredictable, moving faster than time as if he were etched in memories. Unavoidably, a sharp sword aura darted forth, emerging from Su Ping's finger. The girl's enormous pupils shrank somewhat, obviously surprised by the visitor's sudden attack. She was quick to react, though, unleashing blue light that looked like some sort of shield. She then rubbed her hands, summoning a lightning blade. She moved to brutally pierce Su Ping's face. Never hit a man in the face. Su Ping tilted his head, moving his sword to meet his opponent's lightning blade, instantly colliding. Su Ping instantly sensed that a high-frequency power had been radiated. However, all the cells in his body were like engines that worked quickly to offset that power. The girl, on the other hand, had to quickly move back when the sword struck her lightning blade. She had to move dozens of years into the future to avoid the strike's effect. But the next moment, she dashed back to her original spot. What a sharp attack! Was that the Chaos Clan's method? The girl had a solemn expression. Su Ping's strike had won her approval. The other god emperors tagging along were astonished too. They had never seen the girl lose to any peer, and Su Ping even seemed to be a level below them. Su Ping didn't follow up on his attack. He stood on the spot and asked, "Shall we continue?" Of course, there was fury on the girl's face. "You think I've tried my best, be careful." Her eyes turned entirely blue, and her skin was wreathed in abundant blue light. Electricity arcs were appearing in the void. However, it was not real electricity, but the great Tao in that specific form, emitting a terrifying light. She suddenly attacked. The lightning blade she held turned from the size of a dagger to a saber almost 5 meters long, before it slashed at Su Ping fiercely. Her body figure was slim, but her battle moves were wild. Su Ping was stunned by the girl's fury. He didn't know the reason why, but he became serious. He released the universe of chaos and summoned its power, then threw a punch. Chapter 1453, The First Ally 2. After a boom, the brilliant punch moved like a dazzling meteor, crossing the deep space to meet the lightning blade. An unstoppable, sharp aura burst out from the fist attack and drowned the lightning blade. Bang! The girl was instantly flung away, disappearing from view. She wasn't able to resist the strike and was sent flying decades into the future. Su Ping stood on the spot, not moving to chase after her. He felt that the girl would die if he used more strength. Such an outcome would sever all chances to make an alliance. That's impossible. The girl was appalled. While recalling the terrifying force working against her arms just then, she felt as if she were pushing stars. Is that the real power of this Chaos Clan member? The other blue humanoids were filled with disbelief. She used her original nuclear energy, and yet she was still easily suppressed by the invader. The girl returned from the future soon after. She said with a troubled expression, "I've long heard that the Chaos Clan creatures were the strongest when compared with those of the same level, and that they can only be defeated by one of their kind. The rumors are indeed true." "Thank you, you were not bad," said Su Ping. "That girl was as strong as the God Emperors." "What's your name?" "Su Ping, what about you?" "Iris," said the girl, "why did you break into our place?" "As I said before, I'm here to propose an alliance," said Su Ping. "My hometown was already attacked and destroyed by the heavens, so I hope we can join forces. I will continue seeking other powerful allies, such as the gods in the Archean divinity and other powerful races. I want all of us to gather up to fight against the heavens." Iris raised her eyebrows. "So naive. Do you know how difficult it is? The gods alone are a big headache. That bunch of arrogant people would never lower their proud heads even in front of the Chaos Clan." "I will press their heads down then," said Su Ping. Iris felt dazed for a moment. She then clapped her hands and laughed. "I like that. However, you can't do it. There are many experts among the gods, they're just short of a sorcerer ancestor. Otherwise, they would have had a place in the Age of Chaos." Su Ping nodded. "It's not a problem as long as they don't have a sorcerer ancestor." Iris raised her eyebrows, astonishment showing on her face. "So, you have a sorcerer ancestor as a backer." "That's one way to look at it." Su Ping thought quickly and decided that bragging a little was necessary to increase his odds of succeeding. "You wouldn't have asked us for help if you had a sorcerer ancestor. You could have simply made us do your bidding." Iris seemed to be peering straight into Su Ping's heart. "I can tell you the truth. There are no sorcerer ancestors in my clan. That's the final destination of all cultivators. Only the original lives born in the Age of Chaos can reach that place. It's impossible to reach that level through cultivation." She was completely honest as she spoke. There was no need to lie. Su Ping had guessed as much. The humanoids weren't derived from the Chaos Clan. The chances of them having a sorcerer ancestor weren't high. "Our sorcerer ancestor is still asleep. He was badly wounded, so there's no need to wake him up for trivial matters," said Su Ping with a normal expression. "You're lying." Iris gazed at Su Ping and said, "The Age of Chaos is long over. After such a long time, even the worst wound should have been healed. Besides, a sorcerer ancestor can rise back to the peak as long as a tiny bit of their aura remains. This is a special case. I can't tell you the details. You may choose not to believe me." Su Ping was casual about it, not keen on explaining further. Iris was actually surprised and suspicious of his confident look. However, she was still unwilling to believe him. There was only a small bit of chance he wasn't lying, because he was a member of the Chaos Clan. The members of the Chaos Clan couldn't have survived the catastrophe without a sorcerer ancestor's protection. That was the only reason why she thought Su Ping was telling her the truth. "Since you're not malicious, I won't give you a hard time. Wait for my mother to return and tell you the result," said Iris. Was practicing with him the moment they met, not giving him a hard time. "Good thing that he won," Su Ping said helplessly. "I hope it's a good result." Everybody left the arena and returned to the palace. Iris didn't leave. She simply asked curiously, "Tell me more about the Chaos Clan. How did you survive for such a long time?" Is she trying to dig for more information? Su Ping opened his hands and said, "I wasn't born yet. I don't know." Iris didn't believe what Su Ping said and snorted. "Humph, how petty. Why don't you tell me something about your cultivation techniques? I'm quite interested," said Su Ping. "I wasn't born yet, I don't know. Are the women of every species so vengeful?" Su Ping felt that it was better to simply appreciate the views. Several hours passed in a blink. Outside the palace, several magnificent auras were approaching. Su Ping raised his head and looked at the void. Iris and the others, however, instantly became nervous. They hurriedly stood up with blue lines on their bodies, which was their way of paying respects. The goddess appeared again, followed by 3 ancestral god peers. There's only 4 of them. Su Ping slightly raised his eyebrows. Is he the invader? The woman and the other 3 were also observing him. Their hostile demeanor was significantly reduced after confirming that he was indeed a member of the Chaos Clan. "Kid, how did you sneak in?" asked an old man. Su Ping said, "Guys, there's no need for us to investigate each other yet. I'm here with the sincere offer to make an alliance. There's no need to fight the heavens with us right now. It's fine as long as you're willing to participate after I find enough allies. We will kill the heavens together." All of them were surprised by his straightforward approach. Furthermore, he was absolutely fearless, even under their pressure. Such confidence made them think highly of that member of the ancient Chaos Clan. "Haha, very confident. That's indeed the style of the Chaos Clan," said a male with a smile. "I heard that your hometown was destroyed and you're now wandering without a home." "That is correct. You couldn't even defend your own universe. Why should we even cooperate with you? If the heavens came here in large numbers, you couldn't have resisted them either," said Su Ping. "How bold!" The old man's eyes became sharp after snorting in discomfort. Su Ping stared peacefully at him without giving in. All their interactions thus far made him realize that a mere show of sincerity and friendliness was pointless. An alliance would never be formed unless he was qualified to negotiate with them. Kneeling would not equate to an alliance, but to slavery. "You're not afraid that we'll kill you? Aren't you afraid that if you kill me, my backer will break your sky, and so that the heavens can pay you a visit?" said Su Ping coldly. That was the blue humanoid's greatest fear, and the main reason why they hadn't interrogated him. "We've already discussed and we're here to inform you of the result," said the woman. "We're fine with the alliance. But like you said, we will only take part in the war until you find enough allies to fight the heavens. Finding more allies first is the condition." "Naturally, we'll all be screwed if we hit the stone with eggs," said Su Ping. "In that case, let's hope for a good collaboration." "Sure," Su Ping smiled. It seemed that those people had chosen to compromise. After all, his arrival was absolutely unexpected. They couldn't fathom how his backer had done it, nor were they clear about his identity as a member of the Chaos Clan, which was intimidating. "Senior, is this place the last peaceful world in your universe?" asked Su Ping. "Of course not," the man said. "This is just the region under our control. Our universe is boundless. The invasion of the heavens forced us to separate and hide in different green glass worlds." Chapter 1454, Token of Trust. Su Ping nodded. The old expert didn't lie to Su Ping. After all, his species could be found in middle-rank cultivation sites too, which were probably behind other green glass planets. However, the middle-rank cultivation sites weren't protected by ancestral gods, who built the green glass barriers. Or maybe it wasn't built by ancestral gods. Su Ping thought about it, but held back his urge to ask. It would be inappropriate to address such a sensitive matter after they had barely become allies, as it was no different from asking a country about their national defense secrets. "What if I accidentally pass by another green glass planet and find someone else instead? There might be a misunderstanding," said Su Ping. The humanoid hosts exchanged looks. Su Ping posed a question that revealed an important piece of information, which was that the young man couldn't choose the green glass planet he was going to visit, like a skill with a random destination. It somehow proved that the green glass could block the senses of Su Ping's backer. Even if they were truly a sorcerer ancestor, their strength had surely declined. Considering his alliance proposal and his claim that his hometown had been destroyed, they found him increasingly trustworthy. "This is simple. Here's a token of trust. Whichever green glass planet you enter, their inhabitants will treat you nicely once you show them this." The woman took out a piece of perfectly curved, deep purple metal that looked like a fish scale. It was so smooth that even a fly would slip once landing upon it. It was like a delicate piece of art. "All I need to do is show this." Su Ping accepted the item and examined it. Although extremely thin, there seemed to be some embedded structures within, which he couldn't see through. "Yes, This certifies our friendly terms, but only if you don't do anything an ally wouldn't do, said the woman. She didn't mention that she had recorded some information in the item, which was only readable to her clansmen. It briefly described Su Ping's identity, just in case that he would try to boss around in other green glass planets, or even attempt to control the planets without any local Selvega, or steal knowledge of her clan. Okay. Su Ping accepted the item. That would allow him to settle down in that universe with his companions. Those cyborgs had been overlooked by the heavens for such a long time. Humans would at least be in a safe place for the time being. Su Ping needed time more than anything else at the moment. It would be safer and more efficient for him to look for other allies when he became an ancestral god. Since we're already allies, can I take a tour? It would be better if you tell me about the rules and manners of this place, to avoid accidentally offending you, said Su Ping. The group conferred with looks. Everyone nodded. After all, there was a major species behind Su Ping who needed to be aware of their rules. Otherwise, there was a chance of crossing people and even the start of conflicts. That wasn't something they wished to see. Happy cooperation, said Su Ping with a smile. I hope so, said the Selviga goddess. She then glanced at Iris and said, You will be temporarily responsible for taking care of our ally. You haven't told me your name yet, have you? Su Ping. All right, if there's anything you don't know, just ask Iris. After that, the woman instantly disappeared, along with the other Selvigas. The immense pressure declined once they departed, and everybody else was greatly relieved. They were able to breathe again. Iris, however, wore a troubled expression. Her mother had sent her a telepathic message just before leaving, reminding her not to explain secret matters and to keep a close eye on Su Ping. What her mother didn't know was that she had just been defeated by him. She would probably be helpless if he truly did anything. After sensing that the ancestral gods had definitely left, Su Ping turned around and asked Iris, Are they all of the Selvigas in your planet? The very first question is already this offensive. Iris frowned, but it wasn't something she couldn't comment on. She said casually, Of course not. They're just some of the Selvigas. They must have reached a conclusion and only some came to inform you. They were also here to check what the invader is like. Su Ping corrected her, I'm not an invader, I'm your ally now. Iris didn't respond. She simply asked, Your hometown was destroyed by the heavens. Don't you have a sorcerer ancestor backer? How did the heavens defeat you? Did the ultimate heavenly Tao come? I don't know. I was very weak back then, said Su Ping with a normal expression. Just now they mentioned that there are many green glass planets. Why don't you gather in one place? Wouldn't you be weaker by splitting up? You want us to gather in one place so we are caught in one fell swoop? Iris asked. Have you wandered a long time in the Empyrean? I see. Su Ping asked. How long have you been hiding underneath this green glass sky? A long time. 1,000,000 years at least, said Iris vaguely. He kept on. Do you have detailed history records? You even know about the incidents from the Age of Chaos. You must remember when the heavens invaded, right? Iris glared at him and asked, Are you an ally or a spy? We're allies. Shouldn't we be candid with each other? Bah, Iris said angrily. How shameless. He was taken aback by the response. Su Ping didn't stay in the temple for long. He asked Iris to show him around in that green glass planet. Chapter 1455, Token of Trust 2. While escorted by Iris and two others at the God-Emperor level, Su Ping was like an emperor roaming the place incognito, viewing everything about the humanoids' lifestyle. He discovered that their civilization was highly developed. The locals lived a patterned life. Even the people on the streets were walking with the same pace. Everything was in order. Furthermore, that green glass world was extremely vast. Su Ping and Iris crossed many cities, continents, and oceans, and they had yet to reach the end of such a massive place. Su Ping stopped in some cities and bought world maps, only to discover that he had only visited less than 1/10 of the entire region. The area he had visited was already equal to 700 blue planets. A few days spent there, and Su Ping had already acquired lots of information from Iris. Although vigilant at the beginning, she stopped hiding basic information. They're not arrogant like the gods. However, they are cautious, indifferent, and self-contained. He gradually became aware of the cyborg's indifference and rationality. After estimating that enough time had passed, he bid Iris and his other hosts goodbye. Hearing that Su Ping was leaving, Iris and the others were all curious. They were eager to find out how Su Ping would pass the green glass. After all, even they were unable to destroy the barrier. Su Ping wasn't secretive about it. He also allowed them to inform the Selvegas. They witnessed how he summoned the system and a vortex appeared. One last wave goodbye and stepped into the vortex, vanishing without a trace. It was a friendly gesture toward his new allies, but it was also meant to intimidate them. Iris and the others were stunned. They had thought of many ways that Su Ping could leave. For instance, flying to the green glass and somehow fuse into it, or piercing the barrier. However, none of them expected such a simple approach. They couldn't even tell where the vortex was leading to. They could only sense the vague trace of a frightening aura on the other side of the channel. The bluish woman was the most shocked of all. Being a Selvega herself, she was one of the strongest cyborgs, but she realized that she wasn't able to see the world on the other side of the vortex. She examined it carefully, only to detect a frightening aura, one that no Selvegas could ever have. It belonged to the legendary sorcerer ancestors. So he does have a sorcerer ancestor backing him. The woman showed a troubled expression. The horror of the sorcerer ancestors was recorded in their archives with great detail. They could erase the entire clan with the wave of a hand. Su Ping was supported by a sorcerer ancestor, and yet he went to see them and propose an alliance. She couldn't help but wonder if her suspicion was a stupid offense. In any case, she had to inform the other Selvegas of such a find. They would have to reevaluate that ally if theirs. Su Ping went back to the store after leaving the world of cyborgs. Days and nights were much longer than they used to be, ever since he left the old universe. However, everybody still kept the original time system of the Federation. Sometimes, they would bid each other good night, even though it was still the middle of the day. It was sunny outside, but all the staff were resting. It was obviously a later hour in the day. Su Ping's shadow clone was training pets, and there weren't any spots available at the moment, which was the main reason why they closed every day. He saw both Joanna and Tang Ruyan cultivating, so he didn't disturb them. He quietly left the store and went to the palace. Once he got there, he noticed that Shen Huang and the others were still waiting. He had spent a dozen days in the cultivation site, but only 24 hours had passed in the real world. "How is it going?" Su Ping asked. All eyes were trained on him. One of the Celestials quickly replied, "She's not back yet, she's still exploring. There are many lives." Hiding in the dark. Su Ping nodded and looked at the dark on the screen. Kaophalet seemed to be wandering in space, hopping to explore more territory. "Did she encounter any monsters in space?" asked Su Ping, remembering what the bluish woman said. Everybody felt dazed. Shen Huang said there was a giant beast hidden deep in space, however she avoided it. There weren't any other monsters. Is that giant beast very dangerous? "Just one," Su Ping was surprised. That single beast couldn't be the same monster the bluish woman was scared of. After all, it couldn't be possible that the many ancestral gods inside would be hiding behind the green glass barrier to avoid a mere monster. "I'll ask her to return," said Su Ping. He immediately took out a red heart that he had dug out of Kaophalet's body. She could feel it despite the blockage of the universe barrier and was also a beacon to call her back. All in all, telepathic messages and contracts couldn't send any information. That was the only way to call her. The person on the screen paused right after. The next moment, the video feed quickly changed, showing a deep space view. Afterwards, Kaophalet broke through the barrier with a dazzling light. Su Ping detected Kaophalet's vague aura from the void outside. He waited patiently. Her presence became stronger as she approached, until they could sense each other directly. It didn't take long for her to get to the palace. "You must be exhausted. How did it go?" Su Ping saw the fatigue on Kaophalet's face. had definitely gone through many things that weren't recorded. "Thank you for your concern, Master." Kea Follett put on a smile, as if she were a little girl who had just been complimented. She then said solemnly, "I found some planets with humanoids that have very developed civilizations. Their planets are hidden behind natural barriers. It's hard to notice them if you're not careful. Based on what I sensed, the strongest among them is as strong as me. Still, I didn't dare get too close, so I left in a hurry. I read from the memories of some ancient ascendants who have lived for long periods of time. There seem to be some existences stronger than universe dominators among them. However, those existences live in secret places, and I had second thoughts about searching for them," said Kea Follett. Su Ping nodded. "That's right, they're cyborgs. They have members who are in the undying state, and there are plenty." "Cyborgs?" Shen Huang and the others were stunned. They looked at Su Ping in astonishment. One of them asked, "Boss Su, how'd you know?" "I've met them," Su Ping said briefly. "They were also attacked by the heavens, but luckily, they survived and hid in their universe. Maybe the heavens reigned over this place for a while, but their domination has weakened as of late. We'll be safe as long as we hide where the locals live." Everybody looked at Su Ping with shock and suspicion. Why did he know even more things about that place than Kea Follett, who had just returned from an exploration? Even so, not asking was still the sensible choice. Su Ping carried too many secrets. Even if he explained, they probably wouldn't understand. The most dangerous place is the safest place. If they've hidden themselves for so long in that place, it should be fine for us to stay there for now, said Shen Huang. "Cyborgs, they're not living creatures?" asked the confused celestial cultivator. Su Ping shook his head and said, "They're different from the machines we know, as they're naturally born life forms. They're not dead objects with artificial intelligence." The celestial cultivator was still lost and confused. "Let me see what you found. If nothing else, we'll pack up and settle down here for now." Su Ping waved at Kea Follett. Kea Follett stepped up obediently and placed her head below Su Ping's hand, like a cat enjoying touching. Chapter 1456, Information 1. The group of Celestials felt a chill when they saw how obedient Kea Follett was. Su Ping read through Kea Follett's memories. It was as if he would have personally explored the cyborg's universe. There were indeed many green glass planets, well hidden in the deep spaces. However, she didn't encounter the monsters mentioned by Iris. The only creature found was a regular beast. Is it possible that the universe is so vast that Kea Follett never reached the place where Iris lives? Su Ping's eyes glittered. He felt that something was amiss. After some pondering, he decided to explore the place in person. Even if he encountered an ancestral god cyborg, he could hide in the store. "System, if I die here, can I resurrect by paying energy?" Su Ping asked in his heart. The system replied, "No, it's only possible in cultivation sites." "Isn't this place a cultivation site?" The system stayed silent. Su Ping felt helpless. The system could be quite rigid sometimes, but there was nothing he could do about it. He would be invincible if he could resurrect in the outside world with energy. After all, the energy required to resurrect was only 1/10 the ticket cost. "Guys, I'm planning to go exploring. You should be prepared. We'll settle down for now if the place is safe," said Su Ping to the others, sharing his plan. Shen Huang instantly asked, "Wouldn't it be too dangerous?" "It's risky, but it's worth a shot," said Su Ping. "We'll retreat if we happen to run into a hostile, undying state being." Stunned, Shen Huang asked, "Will we be able to retreat?" "No problem." One of the Celestials asked prudently, "Wouldn't there be a chance that we run across those ultimate lives above the undying state that Boss Su described before?" Su Ping shook his head. "Those kinds of existences don't live here, otherwise they would have detected us, despite the barrier protecting the universe." There was a collective tongue-clicking at the thought, as it was impossible for them to understand such existences. "Since retreating is possible, we can give it a try," said Su Kong. Kai Huo nodded and chimed in. "Us floating around is not enough. It would be much better if we have a place to settle down. Maybe we can even set up an alliance with the locals." Su Ping nodded. Once everyone was on board, Shen Huang told the others to gather the people under their command. All the survivors were excited and nervous when they learned that a new universe had been found. Everything was prepared. Su Ping then placed his store, all the celestial cultivators, and the planets with residents into his universe. Later, he approached the barrier of the new universe and made a hole to sneak in. He concealed his aura using the top-secret technique he learned from the Heaven Path Institute. Before him was a dark and quiet universe, just as he had seen earlier. However, this time he could personally feel everything about it. He discovered a thin great Tao pervading that space. There are some signs of war. What an intense aura of death. Su Ping's eyes glittered. A great war had indeed taken place in that universe which destroyed laws and Tao. They had yet to recover. He spread out his senses, sending them throughout space. He discovered a lot of decaying auras which belonged to floating corpses in the deeper layers. Most corpses were from celestials or god emperors. The former only had bones left, while the latter were relatively intact. Their faces were still visible. They were all bluish cyborgs. Su Ping's heart felt heavy. That universe had definitely been powerful and advanced. Nonetheless, they were almost annihilated by the heavens. This made him act more cautiously. He roamed the area, occasionally seeing monsters wandering in deep spaces. They seemed to have evolved by absorbing the energy from the floating bodies. Soon enough, Su Ping found a green glass planet. It was hidden in the eighth space and was as tiny as a grain of dust, floating randomly. Su Ping would have easily overlooked it if he hadn't been carefully searching. Su Ping flashed and approached the tiny planet. He carefully tore an opening and snuck in. A world as insignificant as an atom actually had a vast territory. Hardly had he entered when he saw an extremely prosperous land, where countless futuristic cities were standing. A lot of bluish cyborgs were living there. Su Ping had left a gap in his inner universe. That way his master and the other celestials could see the outside world. After that, Su Ping made sure his aura was concealed and quietly entered a city. He quickly transformed into a bluish cyborg to mix into the crowd. Su Ping had learned the cyborg's language from Iris. Still a ways before he became proficient, but daily communication wasn't a problem. The young cyborg he transformed into walked on the streets and passed by other cyborgs. He was careful as he stretched out his senses. After covering the entire city, he discovered that the strongest cyborg was only in the ascendant state. He immediately captured a random passerby and took him to a deep space to browse through his memories. The captured cyborg didn't feel a thing as he was restrained. Both time and space was entirely paused. Chapter 1457, Information 2. Su Ping was able to quickly learn the basic information about the place, based on the cyborg's abundant memories. Su Ping then freed the time and space and sent the guy back to the street. None of the cyborgs in the vicinity noticed anything wrong during the process, not even the one that Su Ping captured. The hyperenergy gods are in the kingdom. There are no Selvigas here. Su Ping's eyes glittered. As far as the bluish cyborg knew, there were no Selvigas on that planet. It was obviously just a mid-rank cultivation site. However, it was vast enough for Shen Huang and the others to settle down. As for the surviving civilians, they could live inside Shen Huang and the others' inner universes, as they wouldn't take up much space. However, since there are no Selvigas as protectors in this place, what if they settled down and encountered danger later? Su Ping frowned, but discarded the thought soon after. The cyborg he just released had been living there since birth, and there had never been any danger. He only knew that disaster had struck outside the green glass barrier, and that it was absolutely safe inside. Su Ping immediately decided to head to the kingdom and discuss settlement issues with the strongest people there. If they disagreed, he would still have the power to reign over them by force. Soon, based on the cyborg's memories, Su Ping traveled across countless cities and reached the capital of a kingdom. Hardly had he made it to the city when he sensed the auras of 3 god emperors. He did not panic, though. He quietly entered the royal palace and snuck to meet one of the three god emperors. He found the god emperor in one of the palaces, seated right at the center, with silver tubes connected to his arms and legs. It seemed to be charging up. Is this how the noble cyborgs cultivate? Direct energy transmission. Su Ping's eyes glittered. Their cultivation was truly efficient. No wonder cyborgs had an advanced world, comparable to that of the gods. Suddenly, the cyborg opened his eyes and stared at where Su Ping was hiding. "Who's there?" Su Ping showed himself. He had purposefully revealed a hint of his aura to test the guy's strength. "Hi," Su Ping said. "You speak our language." The cyborg slightly changed his expression and gazed at the newcomer. "Who are you? Where are you from?" Familiar questions. Su Ping sensed that the other two god emperors were fast approaching. He replied with a smile, "I'm from another universe. An ally, in fact. I hope we can stay here for now." "Allies?" The cyborg seemed confused. Sensing that his two companions were there already, he gradually calmed down and said, "In other words, you're an invader." Su Ping shook his head with a smile. He took out the purple token of trust which resembled a scale. "This is your Selvega's token of trust made for me. Do you recognize it?" The cyborg gazed at it and his expression changed a bit. He looked at Su Ping with shock and suspicion. "Where did you get this? You know the Selvega." "I got it from your Selvega, of course. You don't think I grabbed it from somewhere, do you?" Su Ping smiled. The cyborg instantly choked. Indeed, the Selvega were the strongest in their mind. Other than receiving it as a gift, there was no other way to get such an important item. He was more or less relaxed. He asked, "Can I check it?" "No problem." Su Ping tossed the item to him. The cyborg quickly grabbed it with both hands and probed it with his consciousness. He read some information inside. Relief showing, he said to Su Ping, "This is indeed a token of alliance. How should I call you?" "Su Ping." "Please keep this item well." The cyborg returned the token. Su Ping then said, "Can you ask your friends to show themselves? We should meet." The cyborg was slightly alarmed, not expecting Su Ping's perception. Such an ally was truly strong. Without the need to say anything, the other two cyborgs, one male and the other female, walked out of the dark. They looked at Su Ping in surprise, as they had already learned about the alliance and the token of trust. Since the Selvega had confirmed he was an ally, there was no questioning the fact. "Hello, I am Crow." "I'm Basha." The two cyborgs introduced themselves. Basha then asked curiously, "Did you come after meeting the Selvega? Why did you come to our place instead of staying there?" "We encountered danger and got split up." Su Ping had already thought of an excuse. "Danger?" All three of them were shocked. Crow asked in a hurry, "What danger? Monsters outside the green glass, or the heavens?" Seeing how nervous they were, Su Ping thought quickly and said, "The monsters lurking outside attacked us. I don't know if there were heavens among them. The Selvega sent us out first." "Just as I thought. The green glass is getting thinner and thinner. The monsters outside can already detect us," Basha mumbled with an awful expression. She seemed at a loss. Crow asked Su Ping, "Were the Selvegas wounded then?" "I don't know, we got separated." Su Ping shook his head. There was disappointment in Crow's eyes. He then shook his head. "The Selvegas will be fine. The monsters can't do anything to them unless the heavens show up." "What do you mean the green glass is getting thinner and thinner?" asked Su Ping. Basha glanced at Su Ping. Based on Su Ping's information, it was obvious that the Selvegas thought highly of their ally, even sending him to a safe place first. She said, "At first, the green glass was thick and inconspicuous. Even the heavens could hardly notice it. However, as time goes by, the green glass becomes thinner and thinner. Based on estimation, the green glass will be completely gone in 100,000 years. When the time comes, we'll have to fight a life-and-death battle with the monsters outside. We might even have to leave the universe and wander in the Empyrean to find a new place to live." "Well," Su Ping wanted to say that 100,000 years was still a long time away. On second thought, most Celestials had lived more than that span of time. For them, it was probably just a very short moment. "Why is it happening?" asked Su Ping. "Those monsters have probably been weakening our universe," said Basha after a sigh. Crow said, "The green glass was created by the universe and the Selvegas. Outside is full of monsters. We can't feed back to the universe while we cultivate inside the green glass. The energy of the universe is being constantly consumed. It'll run dry sooner or later." Su Ping was slightly dazed. Fortunately, the Chaos Perception Dragon had told him that everything was alive. Furthermore, everything could be trained and raised in the system's eyes. The universe was indeed alive. The universe is intelligent and it secretly protects you. As for our universe, he felt guilt and shame as he recalled their escape, surrendering their universe to the heavens. After all, it was the universe where they were born and raised. Without it, none of their lives would have been born. In a sense, it was a mother to all of them. "You didn't encounter those monsters on your way over?" asked the cyborg next to Su Ping. Su Ping shook his head. "I didn't see any of those monsters in this region." "You didn't see any?" The three humanoids exchanged bewildered looks. Noticing their reaction, Su Ping asked, "You've never left this place. You never explored the outside world." "The green glass prevents outsiders from detecting us, and it also prevents us from detecting things from the outside world." Basha added, "We've never left. The Selvegas can sense the world outside the green barrier. They will surely come to our rescue if the monsters outside are cleared. All we have to do is wait." Chapter 1458, Settlement 1. Waiting for your salvation. Su Ping could imagine the cyborg's plan. When the catastrophe took place, they split up and hid in different places of the universe. When the horn of hope sounded again, the experts would break the shackles and rally to unite their forces again. Have all the monsters in this region left, or maybe they're hiding? Basha and the others exchanged glances, not fully convinced of what Su Ping said. They didn't think the young man was lying. Rather, they suspected that the monsters had tricked the latter. The Selvegas should have summoned them if the monsters weren't there. "In any case, let's just keep waiting until the Selvegas do come," said Crow. Su Ping nodded, as it was exactly what he had in mind. He preferred a middle-rank cultivation site for a temporary settlement. Things could go awry if they went to a place with ancestral gods. It had to be considered that, even though he could restrain himself, his master and the others would live there for a long time. It could be risky if their memories could be read without them realizing it. "Since you're allies that the Selvegas have approved of, we will prepare a land for you to settle. We hope that you'll restrain your people and prevent them from crossing the border to avoid unnecessary conflicts," said Crow. Su Ping nodded. "I will remind them we will never cause you trouble." "Good." Basha and the others were relieved. They were somewhat concerned and nervous, given that Su Ping had snuck into their world with the Selvegas, token of trust. Indeed, he was an ally, but whoever was his backer had to be as strong as the Selvegas. He could easily take over their place if he was greedy. But with everything coming to that point, they could only compromise. It wasn't like they could kick Su Ping away. They could only hope that the Selvegas had checked his integrity. The trio led Su Ping to the palace so he could rest. They also asked someone to prepare a continent for him. While Su Ping enjoyed their reception, Shen Huang and the others, who were still inside his small universe, were dumbfounded. None of them expected that Su Ping would so easily become an ally to the forces from that unknown universe's planet. Ally? When did Su Ping strike an alliance with them? Although Su Ping carried many secrets they didn't understand, that was yet another great eye-opener for them. In the middle of the reception, Crow asked curiously, "Mr. Su, are you going to pick up your companions?" Su Ping smiled and said, "They're in my small universe right now. I'll take them out immediately. You may talk to them if anything is wrong whenever I'm in secluded cultivation." All three of them were alarmed and nervous. Is his big-shot backer going to show up? Shen Huang and the others also became nervous after hearing what Su Ping said. They all felt pressure when they met the universe dominators of another universe for the first time. A force was soon imposed on them. Su Ping then took his master and everybody else out. Noticing Shen Huang and the others who appeared out of thin air, Basha and the others observed them, only to be stunned the next moment. Su Ping's companions were too weak. "Mr. Su, who are they?" Basha was puzzled, but she tried to hold back. "They are part of the leaders of my clan. Many others died in the catastrophe, and our strength has declined considerably. I hope that you won't despise us," said Su Ping peacefully. Shen Huang and the others were secretly sweating bullets, knowing that Su Ping was blatantly lying. Although a few celestials had indeed been killed by the heavens, they were not worth mentioning for the three hosts. Still, they knew what Su Ping was doing. They were indeed allies, but they had to make an effort to avoid being ignored. Even those who were in love tended to despise each other in a way. Differences in status could eventually lead to complaints and grudges. Leaders. Basha and the others were dazed for a moment. These people are among the leaders of his clan. Wasn't Su Ping at the top? What about his powerful backer? They were slightly dissatisfied, thinking that Su Ping had only presented some of the elites of his clan and purposefully hiding their top warriors, which was a sign of distrust. However, they didn't point it out. It was just that the smile on their faces was less warm. "Mr. Su, fighting the heavens with these people is a truly impressive feat," said Crow softly. Noticing the sarcasm in the man's words, Su Ping knew he had been misunderstood. He didn't explain, however. He said, "A lot of experts of my clan sacrificed themselves in the battle against the heavens. Some are asleep. I can't introduce them to you for now. Please forgive me." The three experts finally thought a bit. Basha said, "The continent is ready. Let's go there and take a look." "Okay." Su Ping got up. Shen Huang and the others immediately followed. Basha waved a hand and a channel appeared. She stepped forward. There were strange waves of time and space inside. One could get lost and fall into deeper, more chaotic regions without sufficient understanding of the great Tao. Su Ping knew she was deliberately testing the celestial cultivators. With a frown, he casually released a power to envelop his master and the others before entering the channel. As for Kai Wang, the newly advanced universe dominator, he entered the channel with his own Tao heart. Chapter 1459, Settlement 2. Basha and the others looked solemn. They stayed silent after seeing Su Ping's actions. Whether or not the latter was trying to hide the top-tier warriors of his clan, he was an ally nonetheless. Perhaps he was just being prudent. They didn't do anything else to test him, as it would be too offensive to overdo things. At the end of the channel was a blue ocean. In the center of the ocean was a vast continent, with mountains, plains, forests, flowers, and grass bursting with life. They could sense the remains of laws in the sky above. It was clearly a new creation. "This place is important. It is located at the border between our South and North territories. This ocean is called Madia, the largest of all, and this is one of its bays. We're letting you stay here as a gesture of our friendliness," said Crow. "Once you get to know this place better, you will know what a great geographical location this place is," said Basha with a smile. Su Ping nodded. Their goodwill was rather impressive. He said, "Thank you very much. If there's anything I can help you with, feel free to look for me." "Of course," said Crow with a smile. "Now, this place is your territory. We will update the world map as soon as possible so that everybody is aware of the matter. I hope that you'll restrain your people well." "No problem." Su Ping nodded. Su Ping watched them leave, then looked at the spacious continent before him. Even though it was referred to as a continent, it was 10 times as big as the blue planet. There were trillions of survivors rescued from the old universe. Even 100 blue planets wouldn't suffice to accommodate them. And yet, those survivors were mostly living in the small universes of Shen Huang, Su Ping, and the others. A lot of them were inside the Ascendant Cultivators' worlds. Some Star Lords had also packed their families and friends in their small worlds. Living in those places was no different from living in the outside world. Any environment could be created and modified. It was actually more comfortable. That new continent only had enough to accommodate the ascendant cultivators and the Star Lords. It was more than enough. I will set up a barrier to protect you and block them, Su Ping said to his master and the others. This place will be yours in the future. Call me if anything happens. You can also establish a communication port outside the barrier. If there's anything they want to tell you, they can use it. Everybody nodded quickly. Kaihuo couldn't hold back anymore and asked curiously, Boss Su, when did we become allies with them? Su Ping smiled and said, It's just a coincidence. They stopped asking, as they noticed Su Ping's reluctance to tell. Su Ping carried too many secrets for them to figure out. Shen Huang looked at the beautiful yet lifeless continent and remarked, In any case, we have our own home for now. However, according to them, this place is not safe. Something will happen sooner or later, said Kai Wang. Su Ping nodded. They were attacked by the heavens before, but there were more experts in their clan who were able to hide. Perhaps something will happen in 12,000 years or so. We must leave before that. You should try to improve your strength in the meantime. We must leave in 12,000 years. Everybody was stunned for a moment. It was like having to move in a few years. Indeed, there was still a long time for that. The feeling of homelessness returned. Only if we keep cultivating and reach the apex of cultivation can we be qualified to settle the score with the heavens, live in peace, and even take back our universe, said Su Ping. Hiding was very likely an easy task for sorcerer ancestors. Unfortunately, that level was still too far away. The world observed by Su Ping through the Golden Crow ancestor had been the most bizarre scene. Ordinary lives would never be able to imagine what those existences saw. Boss Su, you're right. Kai Wang nodded, with ambition surfacing in his eyes. The other Celestials, however, were showing bitter expressions, as they weren't confident of rising to higher levels. They couldn't even condense a Dao heart without Su Ping's help. Su Ping's goal was too far away for them. They had already lost their cultivation momentum and only wanted to live in peace. Feeling frustrated was understandable. After all cultivating diligently, their entire lives had only gotten them to the celestial state, which had already drained them. The future journey was even more difficult and exhausting. Shen Huang realized what they were thinking. Actually, he was feeling the same, so he could sympathize. He didn't brood on the emotion, though. He spoke with a lively tone. Let's modify this place first. Okay. They immediately started planning. Many locations were marked, based on the area and shape of the continent. Then, they went ahead and started working. The continent was soon divided into 9 regions, same as the distribution in their hometown universe. The central area was left for Su Ping. As for the other regions, they built them according to the environment in their own star zones, essentially making them miniature star zones. Their ecosystem and climate were independent, which made them feel at home. Su Ping went to the central region. The store was still on planet Rhea, but the planet had been perfectly fitted into the continent. He transferred all the planet's residents to the continent. He then contacted the Star Lords and Ascendants and asked them to accommodate civilians in their small worlds. In the other regions, Shen Huang and the other Celestials summoned their subordinates to help in settling the civilians. Then, they made arrangements for the Star Lords and the Ascendant Cultivators. The weakest residents on the continent were Star Lords. Only the families and friends of some experts who wanted to live in the outside world would be released. Is this the world in the new universe? At the store's door, Joanna, Tang Ruyan and the others all looked into the distance. The store used to be on a business street, but they currently saw nothing but a vast plain before them. Their building seemed quite lonely there. However, they knew that the place would soon be crowded. Joanna raised her head and looked at the green sky, mumbling to herself. The sky looks familiar. Su Ping asked, Have you ever heard of the cyborgs? The cyborgs? Joanna was dazed for a moment. It dawned on her. I didn't know it was them. They are a species that inherited the legacy of a major clan from the Age of Chaos. They're essentially a derived species. I heard that they're very smart. I remember what that is. It's the Tao crystal piece. They're using the Tao crystal piece to hide themselves. No wonder the heavens can't detect them. The Tao crystal piece. Su Ping looked at the green glass sky up above. That's right. The Tao crystal emerged in the age of chaos. I heard it was created in the Big Bang. It's a product of the great Tao. If ordinary lives hold the Tao crystal in their hands, they will immediately comprehend the great Tao and reach extraordinary levels, said Joanna. So it's an ultimate treasure born from chaos, Su Ping nodded. Anna does know a lot of stuff, Green Lady remarked. Joanna said, my grandmother told me about it when I was little. She said that a mythical creature had hidden inside a Tao crystal to avoid being hunted by a sorcerer ancestor back in the ancient age of chaos. It worked, as it escaped detection. Back then I thought it was just a story. I didn't know that it truly existed. No wonder the presence of the great Tao is so active, and their cultivation is accelerated. Even though they're hiding here, this is the preparation that the expert cyborgs made for them to rise again, right? Su Ping thought. I wonder when we can return to our universe. There was nostalgia in Tang Ruyan's eyes. Ever since she started following Su Ping, she had lost her family, her planet, and even her universe. She only felt lucky that Su Ping had always been by her side and she could see him all the time. Chapter 1460, Fusion 1. The continent that had been subdivided into 9 regions was given a new name. The 9 states. Every part of the 9 states had a unique style. The ascendants that drifted all the way there were given their own territory. The continent gradually became crowded and lively again. Aside from the ascendants and the Star Lords, some of the Star State cultivators were also released to build equipment and stores. While construction was heatedly underway, Basha and the other humanoids sent visitors over. Su Ping entrusted the matter to Shen Huang and the rest. The interaction between civilizations would surely make the development of both sides easier, on the premise that they would continue being friendly. Soon enough, many cultivators gathered once again in Su Ping's store, all the way in the central state. They went there to ask him to train their pets. Having experienced his magnificent pet training service, they considered it as Su Ping's blessing and a virtually free benefit. The cyborgs are in a way similar to the gods. They don't sign contracts with their pets. However, the gods have beast servants anyway, and no one seems to be controlling beasts here. Su Ping observed that the cyborgs merely focused on self-cultivation. Although humans were the same, they could gain extra power from their pets, even if they had to spend a lot of time nurturing and taking care of them. System, can cyborgs use contracts too? If they can, their overall combat ability would increase, right? Asked Su Ping. The system said casually, of course, contracts are applicable to all species. Su Ping nodded. In that case, I can share the contract method with them as a gesture of friendliness. It'll make them stronger. After all, the stronger our allies, the more likely we'll win against the heavens. The system remained silent. Su Ping discovered that the system was not as talkative as before, even staying silent most of the time. He sometimes even forgot it was there. Can I earn energy points if they come to the store after mastering the contract? Asked Su Ping. The system replied just as casually, of course. Although they wouldn't be paying with astral coins, it's fine. Their currency works too. I will convert the currencies to make sure the pricing is the same. Good. Su Ping nodded, but he wasn't in too much of a hurry. They could become wary if he readily offered the contract method to them. His idea was to wait until they became interested. It would be seen as a show of generosity if he gave it to them at that time. Many things in that world were like that. Voluntary offers were usually not taken seriously. Su Ping spread out his senses until he covered all the 9 states. After seeing that the overall construction effort was in order, he spoke to his master and Kai Wang telepathically. He told them he would be training in seclusion, and they would be left in charge. They were expected to send word if anything went wrong. Shen Huang and Kai Wang knew that Su Ping would often seclude himself to cultivate. Unsurprised, both accepted the task. Su Ping then took the dark dragon hound and his other pets, along with a batch of his customers' pets, to the cultivation sites for training. Other than training pets, he wanted to see different civilizations in the cultivation sites. That way, he wouldn't be completely ignorant if he encountered them in the ocean of universes later. Time flew. Su Ping visited and explored a lot of middle-rank cultivation sites. Some of them were full of ferocious beasts, while others had some warm and friendly locals. He even made friends with some of them, who provided a lot of information. There were species seemingly incapable of lying. They answered everything that Su Ping asked. Some were aggressive and extremely audacious. Others lived on fiery lands and fed on original fire. He didn't stay for too long on any site because he had just moved to a new place. He would go back every day or every other day, just in case anything went wrong. Time passed. The construction of the 9 states was gradually completed. Thanks to the modifications done by celestials and ascendant state cultivators, there were cities everywhere. Some people with low cultivation had appeared in those cities and appreciated the views of that alien land. As for the cyborgs, Basha, Crow, and the others were secretly observing the continent too. Although they couldn't directly see what was going on, they would often send envoys who were warmly received by Shen Huang. They would then have a chance to witness the changes in the 9 states. Different buildings, different civilizations, different technology, and different cultivation methods. In particular, they found that the new arrivals had a cultivation method to contract and enslave monsters, which shocked them. They saw it as a tyrannical cultivation method. One species forcefully enslaving another. It was extremely evil in their eyes. This made them wary of Su Ping, the foreign ally. In one of the cyborgs' meetings, some of the leaders even proposed that Su Ping and the others be banished. The main reason for the initiative was that Su Ping and the others were surely extremely dangerous because of the evil technique they cultivated. If they ever thought about enslaving cyborgs, the consequences could be dangerous. Many cyborgs agreed with the proposal. The voices of rejection didn't decline until they figured out that the Selvegas had directly approved of their ally. However, many cyborgs were still strongly hostile to Su Ping and the rest. Chapter 1461, Fusion 2. That sense of hostility had been noticed by Shen Huang and the others through the words of the envoys who went a visit. The Celestials had cultivated hundreds of thousands of years. Although their level was not as high, they had governed vast star zones for countless years. Being experienced leaders, Shen Huang wasn't upset when he noticed the cyborgs' misunderstanding. Rather, he proposed to trade with them. Aside from trading, he also proposed many activities to celebrate the alliance and get to know each other better. Basha and the rest of the humanoids didn't object to the idea. After all, it was impossible to banish Su Ping's clan. The fact that he was able to sneak through the green glass suggested that he was too strong to be tamed. Besides, he was carrying the Selvega's token of trust. No matter how Su Ping had obtained it, he was worthy of respect. As the trade and other activities ran their course, all the cyborg autonomous districts sent their delegates. They had been alone for too many years and finally, that alien race appeared. Their curiosity and loneliness prompted them to visit the foreigners. They also wanted to find out if the new arrivals were truly evil. Time went by, and the number of active cyborgs in the human continent increased. While interacting, Shen Huang and the others would secretly send their subordinates to figure out what the cyborgs were thinking. They were rendered speechless after realizing that they were considered evil in the cyborgs' eyes. Since they had finally figured out the problem, all they needed to do was to think of a pertinent solution. Thanks to the demonstrations and all the interpretations, the cyborgs finally learned that the contract was not brutal slavery but mutual cooperation. A pet could renege its master's orders if it was willing to pay the price. The Celestials arranged exhibitions for the cyborgs, and the latter saw that many ascendants were so close to their pets that they appeared to be partners. There were even weak ocean state cultivators who were intimate with their pets. None of the scenes looked feigned, and the hosts gradually changed their attitude. In the Central State, I heard that this pet store was established by the leader of the aliens. Their contracted pets are truly terrifying. Even if their level is the same as ours, they can easily beat us with the help of their pets. They have the advantage in numbers. If only we could learn this technique. Too bad it's their core technique. They would certainly not share it with us. A few envoys, under the secret orders of Basha and the others, went to the Central State's core area after being warmly received by Shen Huang. Seeing the splendid building and the long line of customers outside, the envoys realized the lofty status of the aliens, leader, and the foreigners' enthusiasm about training pets. "Hello, can we visit this place?" One of the envoys stepped forward and skipped the line altogether. They had learned that it was a rule to wait in line to have your pets trained. However, they weren't there to train any pets. Huh. Tang Ruyan looked at the somehow familiar bluish cyborgs. All of them looked identical in her eyes. "It's fine if you're just here to visit." Tang Ruyan had learned a lot about that species thanks to their customers and knew that they didn't have pets. Besides, Su Ping had asked her to be polite to the cyborgs. "Thank you." The envoy was very respectful. The hyperenergy gods had asked them to be polite to the aliens. Neither party wanted to ruin the alliance. Tang Ruyan instantly led the 4 envoys into the store. The 4 visitors instantly noticed that their senses were restricted when trying to probe the closed rooms. They could only observe through the naked eye. They felt that they had entered the territory of some horrifying existence. All of them started to panic. Fortunately, being envoys handpicked by Basha and the other cyborgs, they maintained a calm demeanor and were both in the celestial state. So, they behaved normally, without displaying the least bit of fear. "What's that?" Right after they entered the store, the 4 envoys were attracted by the scene at the counter. A middle-aged ascendant cultivator was soothing a red-scaled dragon. The dragon's eyes were bloodshot. It seemed to have a lousy temper. Red pillar dragons are just like this. Aggressiveness flows in their veins. If caged for too long, it won't be able to release a sense of bloodthirst. "It'll be a lot better after training," said Joanna to the customer in a casual manner casually. Having received a lot of pets, she knew most of them by heart. She had received a red pillar dragon before, and it had the exact same behavior. Su Ping told her the same back then. "I see, that explains why it's been so agitated, never responding to my thoughts." The middle-aged ascendant felt relieved. "Take it inside," said Joanna to Green Lady. Green Lady acted as her assistant. Tang Ruyan wasn't strong enough. She was too scared to approach the tough ascendant pets. Only Green Lady was able to take them to the pet room. The redness in the red pillar dragon's eyes faded a lot when Green Lady touched it gently. It smelled a refreshing aura coming from the Green Lady, which helped ease its bad temper. "That pet doesn't seem willing to let go of its master," whispered one of the envoys. He could feel the emotion in the pet's eyes. Although he had seen it before, it still felt surreal. To think that a normal enslaved pet would actually cling to its master. After hearing that, Tang Ruyan found it odd and said, "Isn't it normal? Which pet would bear to leave their master? Conversely, nobody's willing to leave their pets. They are our partners." "Partners?" The 4 envoys looked at each other, silently repeating the word. Given their diplomatic status, they had mastered the language of the aliens, and they knew what the word partners meant. During a moment of life and death, the only things we can depend on are the partners by our side. "You have partners too, right?" Tang Ruyan looked at them and said, "For example, your family." "Are they the same?" One of the envoys looked at her in confusion. All their fellow countrymen would count as partners, but the humans partnered with beasts. "Aren't they the same?" asked Tang Ruyan curiously. "Partners stand up for you when you're in trouble. Pets can even die for you. Why wouldn't they be considered as your partners?" The envoys had heard about that theory before. Still, they found it impossible to accept after hearing it again. After all, how could one regard some beasts as part of their own kind? However, after days of getting to know each other, they realized that the aliens' opinion on the matter was fundamentally different. That opinion had nothing to do with the evil nature they had mistakenly conceived at the beginning. You're out. Tang Ruyan suddenly saw Su Ping, who had just walked out of the pet room. Her eyes glittered, and she abandoned the 4 envoys to greet him. This is... The 4 envoys instantly felt horrified, noticing the man the moment he appeared. They felt a chill so cold, as if they had somehow been thrown into the cage of a ferocious beast. Su Ping also noticed the 4 cyborgs. Seeing their troubled faces, Su Ping instantly realized what was going on and retracted all his killing intent. It was a slight gaffe, as he had just returned from a cultivation site and didn't pay attention to the details. Who are they? Asked Su Ping in confusion. They're here to visit and probably to investigate, replied Tang Ruyan telepathically. Su Ping said, Master said that the cyborgs don't accept our pet training method, that they had even misunderstood us. Yes, judging from what they just said, they seem to have that idea. Humph, what do they know? Their level is not low, but their understanding is really superficial, said Tang Ruyan. Su Ping looked at the 4 envoys and thought for a moment. Should I ask my master to hold a tournament with the cyborgs? Chapter 1462, Reality and Acting 1. Su Ping believed that sparring was the fastest way for the 2 parties to get to know each other. There were no friends who didn't fight at one point. Those people wouldn't understand the relationship between pets and their masters without fighting them. The 4 of you come here, said Su Ping to the envoys. The small group approached obediently, acting rather timidly before the alien leader. Even though Su Ping had already concealed his aura, he had left an intimidating impression on them. When you go back, ask Basha if she wants to hold a friendly contest with my clansmen, so we can get to know each other better, said Su Ping. The 4 were rather surprised to hear him call their leader by her name. One of them frowned and said, Wouldn't that cause misunderstandings? It won't, said Su Ping. Dazed, the man was about to continue, but his companion stopped him. We will report the matter when we return, said one of them. Su Ping nodded and then ignored them afterwards. He asked Tang Ruyan to keep them occupied. He then went to see Joanna and handed over the pets he trained, asking her to inform their respective masters to pick them up. Later, he briefly told his master about the friendly contest through telepathic communication, then went back to his secluded training. A friendly contest, that's a good idea indeed. Shen Huang agreed with the proposal as he had the same idea in mind. Now that Su Ping proposed it, it was a good chance to put it into practice. Shen Huang sent someone to contact the cyborg leader. Several days later, they reached an agreement about the contest. Both humans and cyborgs were excited when the news got out. All of them were ready to participate. Preliminary contests were held to select the candidates in every cyborg city. It was just a friendly contest, but nobody wanted to lose face. Furthermore, only the juniors were going to fight. Nobody would lay any blame if they were too competitive. The losers would only be able to blame their representatives for being too weak. Therefore, both parties were selecting the strongest representatives of each realm for the battles. The levels agreed upon by Shen Huang and Basha included the Star State, the Star Lord State, the Ascendant State, and the Celestial State. They were like the different weight divisions in boxing matches. There were different numbers of representatives for each realm. The Celestial State had the fewest. Both parties would only send 3 people. There were 10 for the Ascendant State, 20 for the Star Lord State, and 50 for the Star State. While the cyborg cities were fiercely picking their representatives, Shen Huang and the others were picking strong battle pet warriors in each level too. As for the Celestial State, Shen Huang would fight in person as one of the representatives. After all, he was much stronger than other celestial cultivators after his realm was recovered, thanks to Su Ping's help. As for the Ascendant State, those representatives were picked from amongst the top heavenly lords discipled under the Celestials. A friendly contest indeed, yet they didn't want to lose. Half a month later, the friendly contest officially began. The battlefield was in the cyborgs' territory. After all, they were the hosts. Shen Huang and the others were glad to see this. The 9 states were similar to their old universe at the moment. It would be troublesome and inconvenient if the battlefield were there, with many cyborgs going there to watch. In one of the cyborgs' holy capitals. That was where Crow, one of the 3 ultimate leaders, lived. It was relatively close to the 9 states and was extremely prosperous. The architectural style was rather exotic, but still luxurious and enjoyable. Shen Huang, Kai Wang, and the carefully picked representatives went there. The friendly contest would be live-streamed to all cyborgs, who could watch the contest in real time. The Star State battles would take place first. They were going to be held in a special arena located in the Holy Capital, which had sufficient reinforcement for Star State battles. The space in the arena had been infinitely expanded, so that the representatives wouldn't be limited. Are they human beings? Their skin colors are so strange. Exactly, there are all sorts of colors, they're not identical like us. Weren't we told that they enslave beasts to fight for them? Why don't I see any beasts near them? Everywhere in the world, the cyborgs were watching Shen Huang and the other humans enter the venue. Basha and the other ultimate leaders were present during the opening ceremony, as were Shen Huang, Kai Wang, and other celestial state cultivators. They would sit at the highest place in the auditorium. Once the opening speech ended, the contest of the Star State began. The cyborg candidate who entered the arena raised a round of cheers. He had been picked after rounds in many cities, attracting a lot of fans during the preliminary matches. I didn't think it would be Nuakot. He's a Star State animal. He defeated someone with his same level with just one hand. I heard that he carries that original energy bloodline. All the cyborgs were surprised to see the cyborg participant, not expecting such a strong representative to be sent first. On the other hand, the candidate sent by the humans was a rather petite girl. Seeing how slim she was, many cyborgs wondered if Nuakot would be fearful of accidentally killing her. It was just a friendly contest anyway. He would be disqualified and punished severely if he killed his opponent. Chapter 1463, Reality and Acting 1. Where that human's beast? Why haven't I seen it? Some cyborgs were curious. The matrix barrier above the battlefield was then closed. Both representatives were in position. However, the slave beasts that many cyborgs were curious about were still nowhere to be seen. Some cyborgs who were better informed knew that humans kept their beasts in a place known as contract space. They could summon their pets at any time. Very soon, the battle began. The human girl quickly raised her hand. 5 vortexes appeared near her, and 5 battle pets crawled out from them. One was as agile and minute as a spirit. One was as heavy and brawny as a dragon. Another was a blue ice pet, while the last 2 were dragons with the most ferocious auras. One of the dragons had 2 heads, one ice and the other fire. That one was a Star Lord. This is a violation. Many cyborgs were screaming and complaining as the girl summoned her pets. Seriously, counting the pet owner, there were 6 fighters altogether, and that double-headed dragon was a Star Lord. How could her opponent possibly fight? Nuakot's arrogant eyes showed utter bewilderment. His body shivered when the double-headed dragon whose mouths were sparkling stepped up. That was a Star Lord dragon. How could he possibly fight? Aside from the girl, there were 5 opponents who were as strong as him. Be gentle. Based on her opponent's expression, the girl felt it was indeed a little bit brutal. Nevertheless, she wasn't willing to be careless. Being a representative who would fight in the first round, she had met the celestial experts and received their advice in person. She couldn't go easy. She chose the safest strategy, which was to treat the opponent as the strongest person she'd seen. The pet responsible for defense stayed with her. The ones tasked for offense and control stepped up. A special attributes pet stayed behind her, ready to follow orders. The double-headed dragon and the ice pet charged, imposing a daunting pressure. The double-headed dragon roared and spewed fire. The entire battlefield seemed to be melting. Nuakot instantly set up an energy shield. However, the dragon breath penetrated the shield and struck him precisely, sending him flying. The Ice Pet's secret technique arrived at that moment. A special power was released from the pet's core. Niwakot instantly felt an unknown threat, but he wasn't able to react in time and was turned into a huge block of ice. The Ascendant Cyborg referee outside the arena quickly changed his expression. Although dissatisfied, he announced the result for the sake of the cyborg fighter's safety. Humans won the match. It was quiet on the cyborg's end, as no cheers were heard before the announcement. However, the human side did cheer. The cyborgs in the audience had eyes as wide as saucers. There was utter disbelief. The battle ended right after it began. He couldn't even fight back at all. None of them were blaming Niwakot. It's just that the human girl cheated. She was fighting with 5 allies, and one of them had a crushing level. How could he fight? Is this how human beings fight? So unscrupulous. Shameless. You ganged up on him. Is that what you're capable of? Humans are truly wicked. To think they would have such a shameful battle method. Many cyborgs were furious. Pride made it impossible for them to accept such a failure. They began to berate humans with excuses. Basha, Crow, and the others looked at each other, showing unnatural expressions. The real purpose of the friendly contest was for them to see the human's special cultivation method, and to confirm whether humans did interact harmoniously with their pets. However, if all the battles were going to unfold like that, it would be one-sided slaughter. It would be impossible to discern how humans and their pets got along. Are all humans like this? Basha asked Kai Wang, who sat next to her. The latter coughed. Although the victory was gratifying, her question was kind of a slap in the face. He smiled humbly and replied, "This is the cultivation method of our clan. We lived in a harsh environment, often encountering threats we couldn't deal with on our own. Partners were extremely important in those conditions. Our pets are our partners." Basha chuckled but made no comment. Shen Huang overheard their conversation and felt rather helpless. They had foreseen everything except that. They didn't know the cyborgs well and they didn't want to lose. So, the representatives they picked were the strongest from every level. The girl who had just gone up, for example, had an ascendant state father who specifically tamed the Star Lord double-headed dragon for her. She turned out to be too strong. The first match was considered an accident. The second match began soon after, with the exact same ending. Another batch of cyborgs was unable to hold back their discontent. Then the third match, the fourth. Contestants came and went, but the results were the same. Even the high-level cyborgs wore gloomy expressions. Those were only star state battles. If the cyborgs were also crushed in the Ascendant and even the celestial battles, would they have any face left? Aside from the cyborgs, Shen Huang and the others were also feeling uneasy, too. It would have been better to win a couple of matches by a narrow margin, but now, it turned into a pure slap in the face. Shen Huang saw from the corner of his eye that the cyborg leaders had grim looks. He knew that the friendly contest would become a turning point in the relationship of both races if things went on like that. He instantly sent a telepathic message to the Ascendant cultivators, who led the Star State candidates, and asked them to go easy. Those who received the message understood right away. They used to be powerful experts in the old universe too, and knew that such a one-sided outcome would not end well. The following candidates, although dissatisfied, chose to sacrifice their own pride for the greater cause of their clan. Therefore, the people in the audience were finally able to see evenly matched battles. The first candidate, who went easy, only summoned one of his pets and was defeated by a cyborg. Cheers burst out. Basha and the others finally looked better. Shen Huang and the others heaved sighs of relief. In the backstage, many candidates were replaced by normal Star State cultivators who only had 2 or 3 pets and mediocre combat ability. Some of their pets were even weaker than their owners. They were sent to the arena, mainly to make the show seem more real. The participants who were replaced didn't look happy, but they were generously compensated, so they felt better. The atmosphere in the arena became heated as the matches progressed. The contest finally looked like a regular friendly contest. The human contestants are significantly weaker. It's not that the humans are weaker, their slave beasts are. Those humans aren't fighting in person. Their capabilities are only mediocre. They're only fighting with their slave beasts. Their cultivation method is focused on enslaving beasts. They rely too much on external help for them to grow. Our cultivation method is much better. We strengthen ourselves. Your own body is the foundation. Many cyborgs saw the human beings' shortcomings in the following battles and couldn't help but feel proud. They felt great again after noticing what they considered as the main flaw of the human's cultivation method. Looks like they've sent all of their strongest candidates. I was so scared. I thought they were all like that. But to be honest, the contestants at the beginning were truly terrifying. They weren't terrifying, their beasts were. Without them, those humans are nothing. Their cultivation method is too weak. Many cyborgs in the audience felt more at ease, no longer frustrated. The scores of the two parties were close. Other than the normal star state cultivators, some of the original contestants were sent every now and then to even up. All the cyborg candidates were strong in their level. They could fight a couple of normal star state cultivators with ease. The battles were quite intense. The cyborgs gradually saw something different as the matches took place. Some pets fought in a stubborn and persistent way for the sake of their masters, even if they were covered in blood. Some masters, in order to protect their beasts, would block powerful attacks on their own. They were heavily injured and defeated. Chapter 1464, Upper Limit of the Cultivation Method 1. After witnessing those actions, the cyborgs gradually changed their minds. Soon the matches ended. The final score was 39-61. The humans, with 61 points, had won by a landslide. However, the cyborgs found the scores completely acceptable. They weren't sad or ashamed at all. They were proud even. It wasn't easy for them to score 39 points from the humans, who were essentially cheating. After the crushing defeats at the beginning, they felt proud when their compatriots won, despite being outnumbered. See, that's what us cyborgs do. We cultivate ourselves. We beat the enemy even if we're outnumbered. Once the Star State matches were done, the Star Lords contest would take place a couple of days after. All the cyborgs discussed human beings and their cultivation method during that waiting period. Some mocked and despised the cultivation method, while others thought it was incredible. If all humans had the strongest beasts as pets, they would be invincible at their level. That was the upper limit. Even the dissenting cyborgs also had to admit that. Shen Huang had sent someone to mingle with the cyborgs, all to collect intel and learn of the public opinion during the few days of rest. Based on the cyborgs' thoughts, Shen Huang realized that the purpose of the friendly contest had been fulfilled halfway. Many cyborgs were angry and scornful because of how the battles turned out. However, they both loved and hated the cultivation method. Why did they hate it? In most cases, people would only hate something when they couldn't get it. The Star Lords' battle soon began. This time it was 20 against 20. Shen Huang thought that it was necessary to pressure the cyborgs some more. To make it less eye-catching, he set the overall objective to 31 points. Thanks to Shen Huang's arrangement, all the candidates were picked. The first 3 battles showed the humans' extraordinary combat ability with crushing victories. The cyborgs fell silent again. A subsequent match was deliberately lost to save the cyborg's face. Shen Huang was calmly sitting at the auditorium. He was like a bartender seated behind the counter, although it wasn't wine he was mixing, but the cyborg's moods. When having absolute control over the battlefield, he could decide when to win or lose. As the matches finished one after the other, the final score was undoubtedly fixed at 31. They won 11 matches, while the cyborgs only won 9 of them. The latter could accept those results, but they felt a greater pressure about the upcoming battles. They realized that the higher the level, the more terrifying the human's cultivation method was. The higher someone's level was, the more difficult it was for them to defeat opponents at higher levels. It was usually difficult for an ascendant to kill another ascendant, not to mention dealing with a couple of peers. There was a lot that the cyborgs didn't know about the human's cultivation method. For example, how many beasts could be contracted? If the number was unlimited, wouldn't they be invincible? Basha and the others looked grim. The 10 against 10 battles would begin soon. If humans were as domineering as in the other matches, they would probably only win in 2 or 3, which would be humiliating. Shen Huang smiled inwardly when he saw their expressions. That was the result he was going for. The friendly contest had only been a prelude in his plans. He was about to achieve his final purpose. Soon after, the Ascendant State battles began. The experts sent to represent humanity were heavenly lords from the various star zones, including Song Yuan, Shen Huang's first disciple. "Master, do I have to use my pets?" Song Yuan went to see his master before the match. He said, "I've been observing the cyborgs' battles for days, and I've learned something about how they utilize their energy. Although their fighting method is special, it's not that powerful. I want to see if I can fight them on my own." He was confident in himself. He believed that he could win without summoning pets. Although pets represented the most important strength of a battle pet warrior, how could they go far if they weren't strong enough to suppress their own pets? Seeing the fighting will in his disciple's eyes, Shen Huang shook his head and said, "This is not about battling but politics. We're demonstrating the relationship between us and our pets. Also, there's no need to reveal too many of our secrets in a friendly contest. We are allies now, but we can't show them everything just yet." Song Yuan felt dazed for a moment. He then understood. He was once the leader of a small galaxy. Its management made him aware of the importance of power. "I understand. Go." Soon after, the Ascendant State battles began. The heavenly lords went up one after another. Their battle pets were all in the Ascendant State, too. After all, Star Lord pets would have only been toys in the eyes of Ascendant cultivators and would be instantly killed in battle. In one of the matches, an Ascendant cultivator summoned 8 Ascendant State pets. The cyborg contender desperately wanted to forfeit. It was impossible for him to beat 9 opponents. The humanoid tried to fight, but was soon defeated. He had displayed a terrifying power, but he was completely unable to resist the attacks of the 8 pets. After such a crushing victory, the cyborgs increasingly felt the horror that humans posed. The stronger the human, the more terrifying they were. Chapter 1465. Upper Limit of the Cultivation Method 2. The upper limit of this cultivation method is too high. Even the ancient chaos entities couldn't be much stronger than them, could they? That's not necessarily true. They could be stronger than the mythical creatures. Do you think humans could contract mythical creatures as pets? After days of friendly bouts, the cyborgs were more and more curious about the human cultivation method, since they found it mysterious and terrifying. The upper limit achievable was also unimaginably high. Furthermore, a horrifying speculation emerged. Could humans only establish contracts with beasts? Or could they bond with any living creature? Their thoughts went wild. If truly feasible, could humans bond them too? Many cyborgs felt ill at ease and considered their human allies a huge threat. The second Ascendant cultivator went up and easily won with 7 Ascendant pets. The cyborgs suffered consecutive failures as cultivators went up one after another and only got 2 points in the end. The gap was so huge that all the audience fell silent. They had won 39 points in the Star State category. The higher the level, the fewer points they got. Would they lose completely in the 3 against 3 celestial level battles? The very notion haunted the cyborgs' minds. Those who didn't participate were having certain thoughts too. Without pets, they didn't think they would have been any weaker than their human counterparts in the friendly contest. If they had the cultivation method, wouldn't they be able to crush their opponents? After a few days of rest, the celestial state battles began. The battlefield was a special small universe built by the cyborg leaders, enough for the celestials to fight freely. Shen Huang, Kai Huo, and Su Kang fought as representatives. They crushed their opponents without giving the cyborgs any hope. The host humanoids fell silent after such a crushing defeat. They had picked excellent and renowned experts. They didn't expect such a fiasco. Shen Huang was the last one to leave the battlefield after the battles ended. He dismissed his pets with a relaxing smile. There wasn't even a drop of sweat on him. He wasn't wearing battle armor but the golden robe he usually wore. Nothing implied that he had just taken part in a great battle. His opponent, on the other hand, seemed to have been struck by lightning. It was quite embarrassing. Shen Huang didn't leave the battlefield after the disgruntled referee announced the result. Instead, he stood in the small universe and, facing cameras in various directions, looked at Basha and the others who were seated in a corner. He said with a smile, "Thank you for your participation in the friendly contest. Now that it's over, there's something we'd like to propose." "What do you want?" Basha looked awful. Do the humans despise us after such a complete victory? Our leader visited a Selvega of your clan and struck an alliance with them. We believe that, as compatriots, you don't mean us any harm. Besides, we have a common foe to fight against. Shen Huang paused for a moment and then continued with a smile. If you want, we're willing to share our cultivation method with you for free. After a boom, all the cyborgs in the green glass planet exploded. All the locals who watched via live stream were stunned after reading the captions, translating Shen Huang's message in their language. They were willing to share. For free. Are humans crazy? That's the fundamental technique of their clan. Basha and the other leaders were also stunned. They remained silent in their seats for a long time until they recovered. But instead of being overjoyed, they considered Shen Huang's motive. "Why?" asked Basha, while staring at Shen Huang in the eye, even revealing the aura of a dominator as she spoke. "Because we're allies, are we not?" Kai Wang, who was seated in a chair close by, also emitting a hint of dominator's aura, while he tilted his head and spoke with a smile. Basha sensed his powerful aura. Based on what she saw in their contest, the stronger a human was, the more contracted beasts they had. Therefore, the guy next to her could very well have 10 contracted beasts at his level. Basha and the others changed their expressions upon such a thought. With such a combat ability boost, the three of them together were probably no match for the guy next to them. Not to mention that there was still Su Ping backing them. Behind that public leader, there was also the real leader who actually met the Selvegas of their clan. The three cyborgs felt alarmed. Without a doubt, humans were on par with them. Their chances of winning were unclear if their cooperation ended on bad terms. The fact dawned on them, and they became much gentler than before, quietly dismissing the dominator auras. "That's right, because we're allies," said Shen Huang. "Besides, we won't lose this technique after teaching it to you. It would only make our alliance stronger, which is a good thing." "Is this what humans think?" Basha mumbled. She couldn't tell whether or not Shen Huang was lying. If true, then she had nothing to say and would only feel admiration for this clan. If it was fake, then what was the scheme? Is the cultivation method actually flawed? However, do they really think that all cyborgs would learn the technique because it was taught for free? The leaders would surely study and experiment first before promoting the technique. They would eventually discover if the technique had hidden flaws that would harm cyborgs. The last thought made Basha put on a smile and stand up. She looked at Shen Huang with a pondering demeanor, then said, "I appreciate your generosity very much. As allies, do you need us to do anything in return? You've already repaid us by providing us a place to live in. We're very grateful," said Shen Huang with a smile. "That's just a small place for temporary residence." Basha shook her head. Shen Huang didn't propose any requests. He had hoped to establish a real friendly relation with the cyborgs through the friendly contest, so what he said was mostly true. However, there were certain truths in that world that had to be told in a tactful manner in order for them to be heard and believed. After the matter was settled, all the cyborgs were thrilled. "This is unbelievable. Humans are publicizing such a powerful technique for free. Just because we're allies, is this some sort of scheme?" "Don't bother. We'll know the details of their cultivation technique very soon. I admit it was premature of me to say what I did. I'll beat anyone who says that this battle method is unscrupulous. What's unscrupulous? Isn't battle always about outnumbering your enemies? That's true, duels are just obsolete. The gloomy clouds enshrouded the humanoids were halfway gone. Some of them, however, thought that humans were up to no good. Shen Huang didn't let the cyborgs wait for too long. He shared the technique with the three leaders and asked them to promote it. Shen Huang knew that they would experiment on it first, but he didn't point it out. Once they learned the technique, Basha and the others wasted no time trying it. They also sent a lot of envoys to the 9 states. Some actually captured humans of different levels in secret and took them back. Basha read the memories of those humans and used them to cross-check with the cultivation technique. She found that it wasn't incomplete, and she also learned a lot more about the human clan. I didn't know that Mr. Su, the human leader, is actually a young man who rose to prominence recently. Basha and the others were surprised. Then they thought of the real leader behind Su Ping who met the Selvegas. They knew that he couldn't have grown to become so strong without a real expert's teaching. The memories also helped them confirm that they had no evil intentions. Therefore, Basha had those human beings sent back in secret once they drew the information. Chapter 1466, Level 8 Store 1. Time zipped by. 100 years had passed since the friendly contest. Such a span of time was just the blink of an eye for ascendant cultivators. However, many things had happened during that century, which the experts remembered vividly. It took no more than 5 years for the cyborgs to promote the contract method after the contest. Since then, the beasts that cyborgs had kept in the ocean and on the continent had become increasingly expensive. Some of the keen-eyed capitalists had bought a lot of beasts right after the contest ended. The move turned them into the richest people in that great era of change. Other than the business tycoons, there were also great political reforms. For cyborgs, it was no different from an industrial revolution. As the contract method was promoted, the relation of the two clans quickly heated up. Many of the human celestials became big shots among cyborgs. Some were even interviewed by the cyborg-run newspapers and recorded in their history books. It only took 20 years for pet stores to appear all over the cyborg world. Many stores tried to increase their popularity by claiming that they had human pet trainers. Many cyborgs had indeed learned the technique from humans. They were simply too inexperienced and had to rely on human support in that aspect. As a result, humans were gradually assimilated into the cyborg society, making their alliance even more solid. 50 years after the friendly contest, cyborgs were already used to contracted beasts. 50 years were enough for humans to adapt to many things, and cyborgs were even better to adapt. Humans at the moment were no longer restrained on the 9 states and were scattered on the cyborg world. The talented ones were already treated as honorable guests. Of course, despite the general peace, conflicts would inevitably arise. However, thanks to the coverage of their higher-ups, news never got out. Only the good news of them, helping each other, would be spread. After all, it was impossible for the two clans to restrain all of their people. Those who caused conflicts would be despised by both clans if word accidentally got out. Once the contract method was popularized, the overall cyborg strength was significantly improved. Many of the humanoids with powerful backgrounds acquired tough pets that made them much stronger, even stronger than human elites. The 9 states. In a routine meeting of the celestial experts at their headquarters. There are more and more experts among the cyborgs. Their comprehensive strength is probably far greater than ours. Their leaders seem to have tamed the Whale King recently, said Kai Wang solemnly. I also heard some people complaining about the cyborgs. They seem to be acting less respectful as of late. It's just that some people are getting cocky. That's normal. Shen Huang said with a smile, pet training is still our advantage. They cannot possibly learn that so quickly. Our pet training is 5 times as effective as theirs. Many cyborgs have been voluntarily coming to us. But pet training is just a soft power. It's the hard power that really matters. I fear that they'll change their minds after their overall strength improves, said Kai Wang, heaving a sigh. You're overthinking, said Shen Huang. Most cyborgs are friendly to us. The contract method is obviously helpful to them. Many cyborgs are even applying to join our clan. Some even hope to change their genes and become complete human beings. This proves the attraction of our species. But those people are just fence-sitters. They're useless. Someone shook their head. Shen Huang smiled, but it still proves the charm of our clan. That's true. I heard that the cyborgs have been thinking about the green glass. Su Kang suddenly said, the available beasts are not enough for all the cyborgs, and the pets on the market are becoming more expensive. Some of the middling pets cost half the possessions of someone at their level. This isn't going to work out. Right now, the lack of sufficient pets will cause trouble. I don't think they would dare to do anything to the green glass, said Shen Huang with a frown. However, some people at the bottom level might have other thoughts. After all, the returns are truly huge. I'll talk to them later. That's right, we should pay attention to this. Well, if there's nothing else, I'll be on my way. Boss Su has just finished training old Qing, said Kai Huo, suddenly raising his hand. He looked like someone whose girlfriend called in the middle of a meeting. This guy. The others shook their heads with a smile. Shen Huang chuckled. Go now, don't keep Zio Su waiting. Sure thing. Kai Huo quickly left with a smile. In any case, Boss Su's training technique is something that those cyborgs will never be able to learn. However arrogant they are, they have to count on him. I heard that Basha and the others went to visit Boss Su earlier, but they were kicked out and had to wait in line, said Kai Wang with a smile. Su Kang chuckled and added, they are the leaders of their clan and were too proud to wait in line. What a shame. They wouldn't have cared one bit about their faces had they known how extraordinary the pets become after Boss Su trains them. Chapter 1467, Level 8 Store 2. Let me tell you a joke. Zio Hua, the one I waited in line and trained, is so strong right now that I can't beat her, said another celestial state cultivator, touching his nose. There was pride in his eyes, however. His Zio Hua was already a peak celestial pet, an ultimate creature not just anyone could have. Be careful then, she might break free at some point. Cut the crap. Zio Hua has been with me for 100,000 years. She won't betray me even if her level exceeds mine. In the meantime, at the pet store in the center of the 9 states, there was only one pet store in that place. However, the whole city around the store was established because of it. It wasn't that the store was aiming to monopolize the business, and that others weren't allowed to start a pet store. However, all the other pet stores had gone bankrupt due to the lack of customers. Get in line. You're a cyborg. Your father is a cyborg leader. Even your father has to wait in line if he comes. It was extremely crowded in front of the store. A yellow-garbed Tang Ruyan was maintaining order. She had grown used to the strange-colored cyborgs in the past 100 years. However, she was much busier than when she only dealt with humans. All humans knew that Su Ping owned the store, so they were extremely obedient, not even daring to talk loudly. Cyborgs, however, didn't show any respect, and they didn't know the rules. There were many who came from afar and asked for privileges. All of them were rejected by Tang Ruyan without exception. Even the human celestials had to wait in line, let alone the humanoids. At first, she was afraid that her refusals would make the human situation worse. However, she knew she had worried for nothing when Su Ping kicked out a cyborg who was causing trouble. She was only talking nicely. She was quite gentle compared to him. Get lost. It doesn't matter how much money you give me. Get in line or get lost. Treasures? What treasures? You think I've never seen treasures. Whatever you may offer, just take it away and get lost. My attitude is terrible. You think my attitude is terrible. Many cyborgs suffered Tang Ruyan rejections. Some of them despised her after learning that she was just an employee, then claimed that they would complain to her boss. However, once they finally got in after waiting for a long time, They were thrown out and asked to get in line again before they were done criticizing that arrogant employee. Some of the regular cyborg customers talked to their compatriots the moment they saw them yelling. Why do you have to ask for their money? Given your capabilities, you can create any precious item, including currency, right? Inside the store, Su Ping was seated in a room next to the dark dragon hound, the inferno dragon, and the other pets. On his right side was a glowing silver ball. That ball was the system. Many functions had been added when the store was upgraded to level 8. The manifestation of the system was one of them. As for the usage of that ball, Su Ping found it was useless, except that it felt good when he squeezed it. Nevertheless, he thought that squeezing that ball was truly satisfying. He could finally make that perverted peeper experience his revenge. That's right. The store had successfully risen to level 8 in the past 100 years, thanks to Joanna and the others' efforts. Accumulating energy was not that difficult. It was mainly because Su Ping had met the requirement for the level 8 upgrade, to train a special grade pet with a Dao heart. The Dao heart state was the universe dominator state. Su Ping had actually spent 1,000 years in cultivation sites during that century. The Inferno Dragon was the first to acquire a Dao heart. He didn't give his pets the 3 unparalleled Dao hearts that the Golden Crow ancestor had offered him. He asked them to walk their own roads, even if it wasn't as good. Maybe they would be awakened once more, and their Dao hearts would further evolve. Evolution would be impossible if they inherited someone else's Dao heart. The Inferno Dragon became a universe dominator once it acquired the Dao heart. Its combat ability was significantly improved. Even the god emperors of some major clans were no match. Thanks to the stimulation of Su Ping's power of chaos, the Inferno Dragon's bloodline had mutated, becoming a demi-chaos creature. It was also the reason why its talent easily surpassed the special grade, and was right before the 300th among the Dao Heart State dragons listed on the system's ranking. There were no more than 300 dragons stronger than the Inferno Dragon in the Dao Heart State. Countless dragons of that level had been born in history. The fact that it was close to the top 300 suggested that it was one of the strongest in that era. The following training made its ranking rise to somewhere around the 240th. Aside from the Inferno Dragon, the Dark Dragon Hound and the vast Sky Thunderous Dragon had found their Dao hearts, too. The Lightning Rat was the only one that had yet to attain a Dao heart. Even though it was the last pet to follow Su Ping, the Lightning Rat was actually as strong as the Dark Dragon Hound and the others. It had once found a Dao heart, but chose not to pick it, as it didn't seem to be what it truly wanted. Therefore, the rodent was still stuck in the celestial state. The currency is just a tool. The system's young yet mature voice came from the silver glowing ball. It's only meant to measure the number of pets you've trained. You're obviously very powerful. Why do you have to do something so boring? Su Ping asked back. Humph, you think it's boring. I think it's very fun, said the system angrily. Is there anything you're scared of in this world? The heavens? Su Ping asked again. Don't ask. The answer's no. Although it was just a silver glowing ball, Su Ping felt that it glittered as if rolling eyes at him. You'll know everything when you upgrade the store to level 9. Can't you tell me in advance? Said Su Ping helplessly. Why do you have to be so stubborn? I'm afraid that your universe will explode in fright if I tell you right now. Let's wait until you reach the undying state, said the system in disdain. You're kidding. What can possibly frighten me? Unless you tell me that you're not the system but some gay, said Su Ping. The system said casually, why can't I be gay? Su Ping almost fell. He realized that the system was becoming chattier after it manifested. It was no longer like the old system. It was something meaner. If you don't want to tell, so be it. I'm very close to that state anyway. Su Ping stopped asking. He had found several cultivation methods to attain the undying state over the past 100 years. All he had to do was confirm them. Su Ping left the store and went to the Golden Crow world. Everything was the same. Su Ping teleported to a desert. He spread his senses and soon discovered powerful auras in a certain direction, which was clearly the golden crow's habitat. He summoned the dark dragon hound and the others to travel with them. Su Ping was soon able to sense an exuberant power of vitality further ahead. Once he got closer, he discovered that it originated from the tree where the golden crows lived. This holy tree is probably in the undying state too. Su Ping didn't consider the holy tree an object. Although he was unable to sense its consciousness, he knew that the holy tree would surely unleash the power of the golden crow elders if they were attacked. Su Ping's arrival was soon noticed by the golden crows, who had already become quite familiar with him. One of the golden crows immediately showed up and asked him why he was there to go and report the matter. Su Ping met the golden crow's chief elder soon after. "Young friend, what brings you here this time?" asked the chief elder with a smile. Su Ping said, "I'd like to experience your universe, chief elder." Chapter 1468, New Road 1. How audacious! A golden crow who had a universe dominator level scolded him. "It's fine." The chief elder wasn't bothered. Instead, he looked at Su Ping in surprise and asked, "You want to observe my universe? There's actually a road applicable to everyone if you want to cultivate an undying universe. This is unnecessary." "Even so, I'd like to try a different road," said Su Ping. The system had also told him about the existence of cultivation methods for the undying state. Although a step higher than the Tao Heart state, it involved the use of a tricky method, while the Tao Heart was based on talent. There were billions of Tao Hearts, but only one method to cultivate the undying universe. The crux of it was to combine the infinite great Tao in the universe. Once achieved, the universe would be the great Tao, and the great Tao would become the universe. The great Tao was indestructible. It was difficult for many universe dominators to become ancestral gods because the great Tao they had comprehended was too complicated. They were unable to find the order or the core to combine all the great Tao. Such a task would cost an infinite amount of time for them to reorganize their combat abilities. Some universe dominators would disrupt their own selves during the combination. After all, such reorganization was different from cultivating from scratch using a clone. It would entail overthrowing everything they had and building the one and only great Tao using the broken pieces. "You want to try another path?" The chief elder was slightly amused by the idea. "Kid, this is different from the Tao Heart state, which is not teachable and has to be comprehended on your own. The undying state is the same for everyone. There's no shortcut other than combining the great Tao." "I'm not planning to take shortcuts. I'm simply hopping to find a more powerful road," said Su Ping. "Maybe there isn't one, but I'd like to give it a try." The chief elder dropped his smile and gazed at Su Ping. "Why do you think there's a more powerful road?" "Because I think there are always many options to reach the end. Just like life, the destination is the same, but anything can happen on the way," said Su Ping. "But that's just for superficial lives," said the chief elder. "The combination of the great Tao is the only way. None of the ancestors of the other clans have ever thought of a better way." "This doesn't mean that there's no better way," said Su Ping. The chief elder fell silent. He looked at the determined yet passionate young man and thought of many things all of a sudden. He realized why that young man grew so strong so quickly, and how he could surpass Dickyong, their princess, who carried the ancestral bloodline of his clan. The two of them were on par in the past. Dickyong was actually the stronger one. However, she had been left far behind by Su Ping. "Should I say that you're ignorant or arrogant?" the chief elder chuckled. "But I like it. Maybe you'll truly find another way. Although the chances are close to zero, I'd like to be part of it. Not just me, I'll ask the other old fellows to show you their universes too." Dazed for a moment, Su Ping said quickly, "Thank you very much, Chief Elder." "That's all right. If you truly make a breakthrough, we'll be witnessing a new miracle. You'll probably become an ancestor-level existence that wasn't naturally created," said the Chief Elder with a smile. The nearby golden crows narrowed their eyes and looked at the tiny human in shock. not expecting the chief elder to think so highly of the young man. The ancestors had been spawned by nature. It was impossible to reach that level through cultivation. And yet, this tiny human being has a slim chance of becoming an ancestor. Even though the chance was slim, it was still terrifying. "Chief Elder, you flatter me. Let's begin," said Su Ping with a calm smile. The chief elder nodded slightly. He had witnessed Su Ping's growth in that period of time. Once upon a time, the guy was an ant that he could kill 1,000,000 times just by blowing air at him. However, the guy had already caught up to him. The chief elder then released his universe and pulled Su Ping inside. "Chief Elder, please perform freely. No need to worry," said Su Ping. The elder crow nodded. He knew that Su Ping's mysterious backer could ensure his safety. The power inside that universe surged like a tsunami. Su Ping instantly felt that the entire universe was squeezing him. That limitless cosmos was solid, completely different from a Tao Heart universe. When in the Tao Heart state, although the power of the great Tao was unified through the Tao Heart, the power was still disorganized and the weaker Tao would be neutralized, like someone being slapped by 1,000 hands. When reaching the undying state, the power of the 1,000 hands would concentrate on one hand, increasing power dozens of times. Therefore, there was an insurmountable barrier between ancestral gods and god emperors. Su Ping focused on sensing all the details of the Great Crow's universe. Once the Great Tao was combined, those characteristics were gradually revealed. It was the Great Tao of annihilation that burned the Great Tao around Su Ping into ashes, including his vitality. Is this the combined Great Tao? It's absolutely unstoppable, thousands of times more powerful than a single perfect Great Tao. Su Ping examined the power. He was like a worm under a heavy machine. He was crushed by it, completely unable to resist. Chapter 1469, New Road 2. The Great Tao has been combined and consolidated. The universe is the Great Tao and can never be destroyed. If a single Great Tao can be strengthened till it becomes as powerful as the combined Great Tao, my universe will be more powerful. Su Ping's body was doing his best to resist, but his consciousness was extremely calm. Despite the agony of being torn apart, his resolve was such that it seemed as if the agony was being endured by someone else. His mind was still functioning rapidly. Even during his moment between life and death, he was still considering what direction to take for his cultivation. Su Ping's body was soon annihilated. Still, he came back quickly after. The chief elder narrowed his eyes upon seeing this happen, but kept his own counsel. "My individual Great Tao has already been perfected. It can't be strengthened without being combined with the features of other Great Taos. They must be combined. How can I continue improving the Great Tao without combining them?" Su Ping examined the features of the universe and summoned his own universe in an attempt to resist, but it soon fell apart like an eggshell, followed by the destruction of the deep spaces contained within. He was slightly stunned by the sight of his broken universe. Su Ping responded. He summoned his universe a second time. Watching his universe fall apart again made his eyes glitter. Death, resurrection, summoning his universe. Su Ping repeated those actions as if in a frenzied state. In the blink of an eye, Su Ping died 100 times while the chief elder remained motionless. He could easily destroy that human with the power of his universe. They were on completely different levels. Even so, his eyes looked solemn. He didn't look down on Su Ping at all. Technically speaking, Su Ping was 2 realms weaker than him. However, he had the feeling that it wouldn't take long for the kid to catch up to and even surpass him. Deep spaces. Universe. Su Ping mumbled to himself. The epiphany became clearer and clearer, giving light to an idea. If he divided his universe into different layers and consolidated each layer with the Great Tao, wouldn't he be able to create an undying universe? They would be multiple undying universes. Su Ping thought of the grand universe outside. When cultivating their universes, they had always based them off of the grand universe. It had always been the norm for living creatures to learn from nature and observe the changes in the universe. The grand universe was created by nature. Still, it was like the finest piece of art, and everything was in order. It functioned because of the great Tao at work. There were 9 deep spaces in the universe, and each space was independent. If I divide my universe into layers and cultivate, I may be able to have multiple undying universes. Su Ping grew confident about this plan and quickly asked the chief elder to pause. Then, without caring about anything else, he simply sat and meditated on the spot, releasing his universe and separating it into layers. The layer separation was in fact very simple. He actually finished the process with a single thought. Following that, he fused all the great Taos in the first layer of the universe. Having experience in cultivating multiple small worlds, Su Ping's first universe was one of stars. All the great Taos gathered like clusters of stars. He soon encountered a problem as he implemented his idea. The universe had to be reborn in order to combine and merge the great Taos. While rebirth took place, the universe would return to its original form from the peak, and the layers would be destroyed in the process. In simpler terms, his multi-layered universe would completely fall apart and be recreated as he consolidated his first universe, the newborn undying universe. In such a case, he would walk the same path as the others who had attained the undying state. There were certainly others who thought of this in the long passage of history, but they never succeeded. This is why they ended up getting stuck. Su Ping felt frustrated and wanted to give up. It wasn't due to lack of determination, but because he had discovered a fundamental flaw and could only choose a normal method. If only there was a way to allow the great Tao surpass the shackles of perfection, without melding with anything else. Su Ping's eyes glittered. All of a sudden, he remembered the unusual scene he saw through the Golden Crow ancestors' memories. There seemed to be bodies floating in the depths of the universe, and the great Tao floated out of those bodies like worms. At the same time, a sentence popped up in his head. Everything can be trained. With a boom, Su Ping's ears rang as if having just received a hit in the head. Everything included the universe, so the great Tao was among them. The great Tao could be trained too. Su Ping almost shivered at the thought. The system had actually told him the road to the peak since the very beginning. Everything can be trained, including the great Tao. Training the great Tao is different from melding it. If I consider the great Tao as a living entity, I can link to it with my contract Tao heart. When a battle pet warrior wants to train their pets, other than feeding them valuable materials, they can also transmit their own powers to the pets through the contract. However, very few use that method because it consumes their cultivation. After all, it's possible to ask a pet trainer to train your pet while no one can cultivate for you. The former can be taken care of with money, but the latter requires time. Cultivation is all about making the best use of time. Su Ping took a deep breath. He suddenly realized how terrifying the system was. The stronger he was, the more he became wary of the system. It was a horrifying existence he had yet to understand. Even if the system was a cheat, it existed in that universe. It had to have an origin. System, what exactly are you? And what's your purpose? Su Ping mumbled but didn't get any reply. He stopped thinking about it as he knew answers would come after he upgraded his store to level 9. How did it go? Any thoughts? Asked the chief elder with a smile, seeing that Su Ping had opened his eyes after meditating. Su Ping gave the beast expert a slight nod and said, I have a theory. Huh? The chief elder was astonished. It was just a casual question, not expecting a positive answer. It had to be noted that besides the general approach, not even the ancestor had an alternate cultivation method. This is going to be a very unusual way, Su Ping said with a smile and then closed his eyes. He stopped trying to combine the great Taos, even thinking about it being an incorrect approach. After all, every great Tao was unique, with irreplaceable features. Once the great Tao was combined, their features would be weakened and reorganized into new ones. They were actually destroyed in such a way. Contract. Su Ping made use of his Tao heart to bond with the first great Tao, the Tao of Fire. It was Su Ping's first perfected great Tao. Su Ping picked it again and decided to train it first. Su Ping instantly felt that the Tao of Fire was a lot closer to him after the contract was established. He could almost feel an intimacy. It was as vague as an illusion, but it was real. Su Ping was rather excited, feeling he was on the right track. He then transmitted the power in his body into the Tao of Fire in the way he trained pets. An intense power of flames burst out of Su Ping's body, setting the void ablaze, even though there was nothing flammable in the void. Su Ping opened his eyes and looked at the burning flames. He frowned a bit. The Tao of Fire had indeed been strengthened, but not enough. He sensed that the power he had transferred only passed through the Tao of Fire. None of it was absorbed. If this goes on, it'll only be a simple strengthening, not real growth. Su Ping's eyes glittered. The great Tao will grow when combined. Do I have to send in the power of other great Taos to help it grow? Su Ping looked at himself after that thought popped up. There were originally 108 Tao glyphs in his body, and Su Ping had deciphered them all. Those Tao glyphs had a strong mutual attraction. They would naturally gather when separated. Once combined, they would form an extremely powerful Tao glyph. Or rather, the 108 Tao glyphs in fact the components of a dismembered great Tao. Chapter 1470, Consolidation 1. More than half of the 108 Tao glyphs had been fused thus far. The remaining half were still drawn to each other. Su Ping looked at them, but didn't make use of those glyphs. He would ruin their synergy if he removed any. He wanted to find out what power he would obtain when all 108 Tao glyphs were combined. His intuition told him he could become an ancestral god. However, that was not the shortcut he was expecting. I need pieces of the great Tao. Su Ping opened his eyes. That was the Chief Elder's universe, and the great Tao had already been consolidated. There were no pieces of great Tao. He had to look elsewhere. Su Ping concealed the Tao of Fire in his body and said goodbye to the Chief Elder. "Have you found the answer you were looking for?" asked the Chief Elder. Su Ping nodded. "I have a theory. I need to run some tests." "Oh." The Chief Elder was rather curious. "What's your method?" "To train the great Tao," said Su Ping. "Train the great Tao." The Chief Elder was stunned. Even though he was knowledgeable, he did not understand what the young man said. Su Ping didn't know yet whether or not his theory was right, so he didn't explain. He wouldn't mind teaching the method to others who had helped him, but only after his theory was fully confirmed. After all, the great thing about knowledge was that you wouldn't lose it if you shared it with someone else. However, there were countless cases where disciples betrayed their masters after learning all the knowledge. Su Ping didn't care about such things. There was only one thought in his heart. Maybe because he was young and arrogant, he could always create more trump cards. Su Ping met Dikyang after leaving the Golden Crow Elders. Dikyang had already reached the peak of the celestial state and was halfway into the Tao heart state. She was emanating an exuberant and scorching aura. The ancestral bloodline had given her the great power of the Golden Crows, which came from the ultimate great Tao. She could easily become an ancestral god by activating the power in her blood. It was the same for Su Ping, who had the bloodline of the primitive Chaos clan. He could become a half-ancestral god, too, if he activated the power in his blood and combined the 108 Tao glyphs. "I heard that you practiced with the Chief Elder, did you?" Dikyang suspiciously looked at Su Ping, who had just left the Chief Elder's residence. "It's only been a short while. This guy is already strong enough to fight the Chief Elder." She didn't quite believe it. However, Su Ping had been growing so fast she had to go there and take a look for herself. "Why are you so informed?" Su Ping raised his eyebrows. He looked at the Golden Crow guards around the Chief Elder, wondering which of them had snitched. "Humph, I'm the princess. I have subordinates everywhere. Nothing is a secret to me," she said with a snort. "Impressive." "Cut the crap. Judging by your aura, you obviously haven't broken through yet. You're no match for the Chief Elder at all. Why did you spar with him?" asked Dikyang with a frown. "Can't I just witness the Chief Elder's power?" Su Ping smiled and waved a hand. "There's something I have to do. Talk to you later." "You're so rude. You're even unwilling to call me your highness before you leave, said Dikyong angrily. Su Ping rolled his eyes and said, have you watched The Godfather recently? Yes, so what? Speaking of which, are there sequels? Asked Dikyong. I'll bring them to you next time, said Su Ping. That's more like it. Dikyong didn't pester him any longer. Su Ping felt helpless when dealing with her. He then left the Golden Crow settlement and entered the wilderness. There was basically no scent of other beasts within a 10,000-kilometer radius. Su Ping went further and finally found some unusual beasts. Those animals carried the bloodlines of ancient mythical creatures and boasted the power of chaos. They could crush both divine and demonic beasts at their level. They were very strong. Even the geniuses among gods had to lower their heads in front of such beasts. That was the formidable nature of ancient mythical bloodlines. Su Ping soon encountered a mythical creature in the celestial state lurking in the desert. The simplest hunter often appeared as prey. The beast attacked when Su Ping passed by, only to be killed the next moment. Su Ping tore the mythical creature apart and threw it to his pets, as the meat contained a lot of nutrition. He also used the opportunity to take the great Tao inside the beast's body and have his universe absorb it. Then, exactly as he did in the Chief Elder's universe, he established a contract with the Tao of Fire and transmitted the power of the broken Tao pieces through the contract. The temperature around Su Ping rose to an unbearable extent as the power of the broken pieces was transmitted. The place began to twist and even melt, even though it was highly resistant to heat. It's truly effective. Su Ping was pleasantly surprised. He found that the power of the broken Tao pieces could be absorbed by the Tao of Fire. The features of the great Tao were removed and only the purest Tao power would remain. The Tao of Fire absorbed it and became stronger, reaching a whole new level, beyond the formerly attained perfection. An idea occurred to him. If the Tao of Fire reaches the maximum, I wonder if it'll be more powerful than the Golden Crow's fire. He soon thought of another possibility. The Golden Crows had possibly cultivated the Tao of Fire to the maximum. Only the Golden Crow ancestor could answer that question. Su Ping dismissed those irrelevant thoughts and focused on controlling the Tao of Fire to absorb it. Chapter 1471, Consolidation 2. A long time passed. When Su Ping opened his eyes again, he discovered that the desert around him became golden lava, with a shocking heat of more than 1,000,000,000 degrees. It was even hotter than the center of a nuclear explosion. The Tao of Fire. Su Ping sensed that his Tao of Fire was 50% more powerful than before. Although some of the power from the Tao shards drifted away due to unknown reasons, the rest was absorbed as nourishment for the Fire Tao. As long as I absorb enough great Tao pieces, even the Tao of Fire can be used to consolidate the universe. Su Ping's eyes glittered. It was just a theory at first, but now he thought it was actually feasible. If that was the new way, he would be able to consolidate many great Taos and establish true multiple undying universes. Su Ping rose and looked for more mythical creatures. Tens of thousands of kilometers away, he found another one with celestial cultivation, but much stronger. He even thought that many celestial gods would have a hard time defeating it. As for the celestials from the Federation, they would probably die instantly. Same level, different bloodlines. Their combat abilities were completely different. However, even though the mythical creatures are so strong, we can bond with them and turn them into our supporters. I have to say, the first battle pet warrior was a true genius, Su Ping said to himself. Once he killed the mythical creature, Su Ping repeated the process to absorb its great Tao. His Fire Tao became a lot more powerful, but there was still a very long way to go before it could truly consolidate the universe. I've found the right way, but it's very time-consuming. Fortunately, I have the help of the system's cultivation sites. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to hunt many creatures carrying the great Tao. Su Ping realized how much time and the shocking amount of resources this approach would require. He felt rather lucky, as it would be difficult for others to carry it out, even if they knew. It would have been practically impossible to gather that many shards of the Great Tao without access to lots of cultivation sites. Whoosh! Once done with that prey, Su Ping turned around and went elsewhere. Soon, many mythical creatures were hunted by him. The dark dragon hound and his other pets were full. His pets were also turning into chaos creatures, after eating such a large amount of mythical creatures and absorbing their essence. Time flew by. 4 months passed in the blink of an eye. Su Ping hunted high and low on the Golden Crow's planet. Fortunately, the planet was boundless, almost the size of half the federal universe. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been enough beasts for the Golden Crows to feed on. Even Su Ping took 10 days to reach the Golden Crow's holy tree from the other side of the planet. It is worthy of note that Su Ping's current strength was enough to cross a solar system within a single breath. After 3 months of hunting, the dark dragon hound, the inferno dragon and the other pets transformed significantly. Although still in the Tao Heart state, they were much stronger than before and turned into mythical creatures. They were overflowing with the power of chaos, having become dozens of times stronger than other creatures at their level. Bang! Su Ping raised a hand and pointed with one of his fingers. A spark darted out of his finger. Like a ray, it penetrated a Tao Heart mythical creature. Su Ping took a deep breath with glittering eyes as he felt the scorching heat and saw the black crack in the void. He was at the moment capable of easily piercing a Tao Heart mythical creature with the Tao of fire alone. That was a mythical creature. If God Emperors were there, he could kill them all, even if they were standing in line. Just like before, he threw the beast's corpse to his pets, and then absorbed the shards of great Tao he found. The Tao of fire stood in the center like a dazzling star in his universe of chaos, surrounded by other great Taos. However, compared to the Tao of fire, they were as insignificant as butterflies. If he hadn't done it step by step in the past 3 months, Su Ping wouldn't have believed that the perfected Tao of fire could grow to such a powerful level. This is leading to the highest level. I think that my universe is already influenced by the Tao of fire. The moment my fire Tao is able to easily control the universe, maybe I can create an undying universe with only the Tao of fire. Su Ping's eyes glittered. He would become an ancestral god after taking that step. Still, unlike the other ancestral gods, he could continue training other great Taos once his fire Tao reached the limit. The more time Su Ping had, the more great Tao he would be able to cultivate. Time was power for him. His only concern was that the heavens would invade the cyborg's universe. Give me 10,000 years. If I can cultivate 100,000 years in cultivation sites, I will definitely become as strong as an ancestor. Su Ping's eyes glittered with confidence. He stopped hunting after absorbing the great Tao of some mythical creatures. He had been there for a couple of months and thought it was time to return and see if everything was all right. Su Ping had to go out every once in a while. After all, he was seen as the leader of humankind. His master could indeed leave him a message if anything was wrong, but they wouldn't be able to reach out to him in case of emergencies. He then chose to return. When back in the store, Su Ping saw delight in the eyes of Tang Ruyan, Joanna, and the others. It was obvious that they had been worried for him. However, his comings and goings had become beyond customary. They were no longer as concerned when they saw him. Su Ping received updates while releasing the customers' pets. From Tang Ruyan, he learned news both important and trivial. Humans and cyborgs were getting along. There was more trade and communication. The cyborgs' advanced technology was a source of inspiration for humans, while their training techniques were seen as treasures by the cyborgs. A lot of them were there as apprentices. I'm glad that nothing important happened. Su Ping's biggest concern was the green glass protection. As for the big news, he only regarded them as fun facts. After the briefing, Su Ping went back to the cultivation sites with another batch of pets. This time, he randomly picked another mid-rank cultivation site. He trained pets and hunted to improve his own cultivation. Time moved forward. 20 years passed in the blink of an eye. Su Ping had cultivated for 200 years in the cultivation sites. He hunted an endless number of powerful creatures during that period, beasts and beings of strange species. Su Ping's targets were no weaker than the ascendant state, given that the complete Great Tao was found in ascendant beings and above. The ones in the celestial state with their own small universes would have more pieces of the Great Tao, and would drop dozens of times more Tao shards than any ascendant prey. The pieces harvested from Tao heart prey would be even more. However, those higher beings were very cautious. They couldn't defeat Su Ping and would often hide, following their natural awareness for danger. Fortunately, Su Ping learned the importance of disguise and lured them out with the lightning rat. The rodent had yet to reach the Tao heart state, even after cultivating for 200 years. Its battle techniques were brutal, but there was still one final step to take. Su Ping also discovered that the little one was unable to comprehend a Tao heart, because it hadn't found its own heart yet. It's time. Su Ping examined the scorching power in his universe after absorbing the great Tao pieces of a celestial state beast. Even though his consciousness hadn't entered his universe, he could feel the horrifying aura produced by his body, which felt like a furnace. The fire Tao was emitting such immense heat inside his universe that the other great Taos were barely noticeable. Su Ping's entire universe was illuminated. It seemed to be transforming already. He knew that he was about to hit the bottleneck and truly transform in a couple of years. He felt hopeful as he went back to the store. As usual, he took out the customers' pets and picked up a batch. He then asked Tang Ruyan about the current news. Chapter 1472, The Planet of Origin 1. You came right on time. Your master is looking for you. Tang Ruyan quickly added, I heard it's urgent. Urgent? Su Ping was shocked. His master would never look for him unless it was something important. This time he even said that it was urgent. He asked back, did my master say what was the issue? Nope. Su Ping wasted no time spreading out his senses, instantly covering the entire 9 states. Even the worms crawling in the sand were seen vividly. The next moment Su Ping went to the conference temple. Master. Su Ping went directly to see his master. He asked, you looked for me, something about an urgent matter. You're here. Shen Huang was greatly relieved to see him. He quickly said, great. I thought you would be training in seclusion for a long time. A few days ago, the cyborgs informed us that something went wrong with the green glass. The green glass. Su Ping couldn't help but raise his head. Although the temple had a solid ceiling, his eyes could pierce through it, directly seeing the green sky above. That was the planet's protective shield, and the ultimate Tao pieces originated from chaos. What's the problem? Asked Su Ping. Shen Huang said, Basha, one of the cyborg leaders, said that something struck part of the green glass. We're not sure if the impact was accidental or if some monster was trying to get inside. The cyborgs are discussing whether or not they should go out and check. However, I don't think they're capable of doing that. Something struck the glass. Su Ping narrowed his eyes. They didn't encounter any monsters on their way over to the planet. Is there really a monster? Or maybe the heavens arrived? Contact the cyborgs right now. I want to know the latest information and find out what they're up to, said Su Ping immediately. Shen Huang nodded. I'll make arrangements right away. Never mind, I should personally talk to them. This matter is too important, said Su Ping. He didn't expect such a turn of events after only 100 years of peace. Su Ping's senses were then spread beyond the 9 states to cover the cyborg's territory. All the strong cyborgs were clearly marked by his senses, like glittering spots on a map. He soon located an extremely powerful aura in the northern region. He sent out a thought. Are you Mr. Crow? I heard that something went wrong with the green glass. I'd like to know what's going on. Being allies, shouldn't we discuss the matter together? This place is our home, too. Boss Su. Crow felt dazed for a moment after hearing Su Ping's voice. He then tracked down the source of his counterpart's consciousness, only to find that the man was still in the 9 states. This surprised him, not expecting that Su Ping's senses would cover such a wide range. He instantly replied, "No problem. We were going to discuss it with you." "All right, let's meet in the 9 states," said Su Ping. Crow took a deep breath after the conversation ended. The concern they had after their own meeting seemed to have a way to be addressed now. He instantly informed the other 2 leaders, and the 3 went to the temple where Su Ping was located. All the human experts were already there. "Nice to meet you, laters." Su Ping raised his head. All the human celestials were shocked by that greeting and quickly raised their heads to look. A second later, ripples were formed in the air and 3 figures appeared. They were the 3 cyborg universe dominators. Kai Wang was secretly shocked. He had become a universe dominator with Su Ping's help, and yet he didn't notice their impending arrival. Su Ping was truly stronger than he expected. The latter had yet to announce his advancement to the higher undying state, but he suspected that Su Ping's power was already getting close. "Boss Su." The 3 cyborg leaders nodded at Su Ping and then the others. Basha, who stood on the left, said, "We've informed Shen Huang about the green glass incident. After some discussion, we decided to go out and investigate. Although risky, we believe it's necessary." "Maybe the monsters have discovered us and are trying to surround us," said Crow. "If it's not them, we won't be exposed, even if we go out and investigate." Su Ping gave them a slight nod. It was obvious that they reached the decision after carefully weighing the pros and cons. "Was the glass struck a second time?" asked Su Ping. "No, however, the previous impact didn't feel like we hit any planet," said Basha. Su Ping nodded and said, "I'll tag along and investigate with you." "Boss Su, how truly brave of you." Crow couldn't help but praise him. The purpose of their visit was to invite Su Ping to join them. After all, the human leader was very strong and could be a great teammate. Besides, they were also concerned that if something happened to them and they couldn't return, Su Ping would easily suppress their clan with his strength. "Boss Su, how did you get in at the very beginning? Can we go out the same way?" asked Basha. Su Ping said, "I simply tore my way through. I didn't cause much noise." The 3 exchanged bewildered looks. None of them had felt a thing, which suggested that the noise made back then was truly negligible. Chapter 1473, The Planet of Origin 2. "Mr. Kai Wang, would you like to come with us? We could use some extra help," said Crow. Kai Wang felt dazed for a moment, then glanced at Su Ping as he realized what was going on. He instantly nodded and said, "No problem. This is our home too. I'm responsible for protecting it." "Okay." The 3 cyborg leaders were all smiles, seeing that both Su Ping and Kai Wang were so easily convinced. "Let's go now," said Su Ping. "Now." The humanoid trio was rather surprised, not expecting Su Ping to be that fast. "Do you have to make preparations?" asked Su Ping. "Not really. This is actually better. We'll be sooner at ease once we figure out the reason," said Basha. "In that case, let's go. We have a map of the green glass. We'll exit the glass from somewhere else and take a detour to avoid the point of impact. That way we won't meet anyone head-on," said Crow. Su Ping nodded. "Master, you'll have to take care of the human clan for now," said Su Ping to Shen Huang. Slightly concerned, the latter said, "Be careful and come back if it's truly dangerous." "Okay." The other celestial state experts were slightly worried, too. Su Ping was their backbone at the moment. If anything happened to him, they didn't know how they could preserve the human bloodline. The group of 5 left the temple. Su Ping and Kai Wang followed the 3 cyborgs to a place right underneath the green glass. There were no cities within a radius of tens of thousands of kilometers. It was absolutely desolate, and only a few animals roamed about. The excessive radiation in that place made it difficult for beasts to get close. "This was the first gate we planned in the past." Basha stared at the green glass above her and said, "We had imagined that a war would eventually take place somewhere beyond the sky, and this was to be the first stop of our march." Su Ping gave her a slight nod. The pressure imposed on a race always surrounded by monsters was enormous. This would motivate them to pursue extreme power. This was the mark left when we tried to tear the green glass open, but we were only testing. We never really broke it. Crow pointed at a part of the green glass where there was a shallow mark, invisible to the naked eye. Only ascendants who had mastered a perfect great Tao could sense it. "Let's sneak out from here," said Basha. "We'll have to work together. The three of us are barely capable of breaking through," said Crow. "Let me do it." Su Ping didn't hide his strength. He wasn't trying to show off. It was because the matter was of critical importance. He wanted to make as little disturbance as possible, preventing anyone outside from finding out. "Huh?" The others looked at him in surprise. Su Ping didn't say anything. He simply raised a hand with a slow gesture, manifesting a scorching power in his palm. Once the arm was fully raised, the power had been fully accumulated, as if he were holding a sun. The energy emitted was terrifying to the others. Well, they were appalled, as they could sense the great Tao's pure power. However, such power was too unimaginably strong for someone in the Tao heart state. "Boss, he's truly." Kai Wang looked at Su Ping in shock, instantly confirming that Su Ping had surpassed the universe dominator realm and reached the undying state that he looked up to. Above that level was the end of all cultivation, the chaos ancestor realm that stood above all races. The scorching fire Tao was condensed into a ray that looked like a golden sword. It slowly drew a line underneath the sky, causing a tiny crack. Su Ping covered everyone with the aura of illusion and said, "Let's go." After that, he made a move and was the first to dash out. The other four reacted despite their shock. They followed and exited the green glass planet. Su Ping then saw the dim and dark universe. The green glass behind them was like a glimmering grain of dust, utterly inconspicuous. "There's some aura left." He noticed a feeble aura in space. Although most of it was erased, there were still some marks. It seemed that they had left in too much of a hurry to wipe it clean. Su Ping's eyes turned into the eyes of chaos, and noticed that space was twisted and time was reversed. He saw that the aura was increasingly obvious, but he didn't see any figure, even though he went back to review time up to a month. The mark was left 2 days prior. Have they erased their traces in history? Su Ping never expected to find too many things from history anyway. He considered for a moment and asked his teammates, "Should we follow up?" Basha and the others were still looking around. That was their first time ever stepping out of the green glass and observing the universe their ancestors described. Although they had seen it in their ancestors' memories, it was the first time seeing it in person. It was slightly different from what they were told. Furthermore, there were no monsters lurking around the green glass. They felt both lucky and delighted. Have the monsters already left the universe after such a long time? The cyborgs finally took note of the vague marks in the void. They looked at each other, then Basha asked, "Would we alarm them if we recklessly followed them?" "They didn't even wipe their marks clean. They might not be able to detect us," said Su Ping. The humanoid trio was rendered speechless. The other possibility was that the marks were left for the purpose of luring them. "You can't be overly cautious all the time if you want to get rid of danger completely," said Su Ping, after realizing what they were thinking. The three of them hesitated and talked amongst themselves for a long time, eventually agreeing. Su Ping didn't waste any more time. He quickly led them forward. Half a day later, Su Ping saw a glimmering planet in the dark space. Right when he saw the planet, a furious wind emerged from it, and a voice was directly sent to the heads of all living creatures. What shocked Su Ping and Kai Wang was that the voice seemed to be cursing in the language of the Federation. "That voice, it seems to belong to." Kai Wang's eyes widened, somehow finding the voice familiar. After listening to it carefully, he looked at Su Ping with a crazy thought in his head. Su Ping noticed Kai Wang's odd behavior and instantly asked via telepathy, "What's wrong?" "I think it's the primordial Empyrean master," Kai Wang replied with disbelief on his face. Su Ping was shocked. He remembered that the planet of origin was the first to flee, According to Follett, they had coordinates in a place beyond the universe. He didn't expect to meet them there. It's them. Su Ping narrowed his eyes and quietly spread his senses. He soon discovered a lot of auras on that planet. Most of them belonged to ascendants, and 5 were in the celestial state. In addition, there was a universe dominator openly releasing his aura. Su Ping saw that it was a white-robed old man. However, the guy was blushing while he yelled and cursed crazily. They are indeed from the Federation. Su Ping recognized the buildings and clothes of those people. They matched with what he had seen in Follett's memories. It truly was the planet of origin, and the old man was the primordial Empyrean master, the strongest man in the old Federation. He had already reached the Tao-Heart state. No wonder the 12 celestial state experts obeyed him. Even someone as strong as the Saint King had to run errands for him. Why are they here? Why are they making such a racket? Do they want to get killed? Su Ping was gloomy. He didn't like them at all. Since the man continued with his roaring, Su Ping flashed to float somewhere above the planet of origin. An abundant power was spread out, enveloping the entire planet. That way it was impossible for the man's roar to spread out. Su Ping moved closer to where the white-robed old man was and yelled at him. Shut up. Chapter 1474, Strange Disease 1. After a hum, the white-robed old man trembled, and the madness in his eyes was cleared for a brief moment, although befuddled. He looked up and noticed Su Ping, who landed like a god, then asked without much thought, "Who are you?" Primordial Empyrean Master. A crimson light passed by, and Kai Wang appeared next to Su Ping. He glared at the strongest man from their universe. They once revered the primordial Empyrean Master, both for his strength and for his contributions. The man had established a federation, freeing humans on remote planets from being enslaved by alien races or eaten by beasts. However, when crisis struck, the reputed expert was the first one to flee. They were all disappointed. "You're Kai Wang." Stunned, the old expert recognized Kai Wang. The kid had been stuck in the celestial state for hundreds of thousands of years, and yet he. 3 beams of light passed by, and the cyborg leaders moved close to Su Ping. Once they noticed the people on the planet of origin, they couldn't help but look at Su Ping. Are they humans too? Yes, they are the traitors of humankind, replied Su Ping coldly. The 3 leaders exchanged stunned looks, partially understanding the situation. Being leaders of a major race, they knew that there were traitors in every clan, especially when under enormous pressure. If they're traitors, just kill them, that way they won't cause too much noise and alarm the monsters, said Basha. They had seen a fair share of traitors, but they couldn't tolerate them. You! The primordial Empyrean master was fully awake now. He looked at the 3 alien experts, Kai Wang and Su Ping, who seemed to be a leader of sorts. He had never seen Su Ping and didn't know when the guy rose to prominence. Is the guy an old monster from some ruins? The old expert immediately asked, Kai Wang, you left the universe too. What's the situation? Are the heavens still there? Kai Wang sneered and replied, do you really care about our universe? Didn't you know what would happen when you led the people in the planet of origin away? The Empyrean said bitterly, the heavens can be dated back to the distant age of chaos, which was a great era we weren't able to see. Any creature from that era can crush us with ease. However, the heavens were able to end the chaos era. I had to keep some hope for humanity. By hope you mean saving yourselves, Kai Wang sneered. That's just a fancy way of saying that you turned tail. None of us were born yesterday. Don't bother explaining. The primordial Empyrean master was silent. Indeed, they had all lived for hundreds of thousands of years, and not even kids would fall for that. It was pointless. He said, I knew the heavens had arrived, but I didn't know how strong they were. I feared they would instantly destroy our universe, so I had to leave with the planet of origin right away. I know you can't forgive me. I wouldn't forgive myself if I were you. Humph, Kai Wang sneered. The old expert looked at him and said, I didn't expect you to be the most talented one of the 12 Celestials. Now you're also a universe dominator. Are those aliens your friends? The heavens are our enemies. We shouldn't fight each other. How about an alliance? Kai Wang laughed, but he didn't decline the offer. He looked at Su Ping. Although he despised the old man's actions, he had to admit that the latter was very strong, and they could use all kinds of help to increase their odds of winning against the heavens. "Didn't you leave the universe? How did you end up here?" said Su Ping coldly, not bothering to acknowledge the offer. The primordial Empyrean master was slightly surprised. Judging by Kai Wang's reactions, the young man seemed to be the one who called the shots. He observed Su Ping carefully, but didn't find a single trace of the universe dominator realm on him. The young man seemed to merely be a celestial. However, he vividly remembered that the guy was the first to arrive and yell at him, after tearing an opening through the planet of Origin's barrier. "Who are you?" "Just answer my questions," said Su Ping coldly. The old master was slightly angry, but he didn't let anything show. He smiled and said, "We did have a pair of coordinates outside of the universe where we could temporarily live. However, something went wrong. We encountered a mutated mythical chaos creature that destroyed our planned destination. We've been wandering ever since." "A mythical chaos creature?" Su Ping raised his eyebrows. "Are there mythical chaos creatures in the realm of the heavens?" "Yes, but their population is not large," said the old man. "According to the records, when the Age of Chaos collapsed, many mythical creatures scattered about and escaped. Some of them simply wandered beyond the universe. However, the places beyond the universe are boundless. It's hardly possible to run into them. We were simply too unlucky." He couldn't help but sigh as he recalled the situation. "Why were you yelling just now?" Su Ping asked. The primordial Empyrean master was stunned for a moment. He took a deep breath and said, "I was affected while I fought the mythical chaos beast. The disease has been haunting me since then." "The disease makes you scream loudly." Su Ping raised his eyebrows. Chapter 1475, Strange Disease 2. After a moment of silence, the primordial Empyrean master said to Su Ping, "That's my problem, not yours. I've told you everything I know. I'd like to contribute to humankind, being a human myself. Since we're stranded in this foreign land, I suggest that we establish the Federation once more. Everybody in the universe will benefit from it. You shouldn't refuse to cooperate with me just because you can't understand why I escaped. We cannot seek revenge without working together." He spoke in a persistent and righteous manner. Su Ping remained calm and unmoved. "Let's see if you're telling the truth." With that, he raised a hand and gathered the 5 celestials in the planet of Origin. They were shocked, as they were teleported from different places. It made them feel like ants in the hand of a giant. They had only experienced such a terrifying display of force from the primordial Empyrean master. Ignoring their fear and shock, Su Ping pointed at one of them and read his memories. Su Ping browsed quickly and soon found the memory when he fled from the universe. According to that memory, Su Ping saw that the primordial Empyrean master left the universe while manning the planet of Origin like a majestic god. He jumped to a point according to certain coordinates through an ancient array. The coordinates would lead to a hidden space. They lived there for some time. Time flowed at a different speed in that place. They spent more than 500 years there, until a mythical chaos creature got close. To avoid conflict, the primordial Empyrean master had to abandon their haven and flee to a place beyond the universe. After wandering for decades, the old expert stopped steering the planet one day and left. Everything seemed to be as usual when he returned. However, ever since that day, the primordial Empyrean master had been yelling crazily from time to time. The first time he suffered a lapse of reason. He even killed a celestial that was merely talking to him. After that, the remaining celestials told him of his episodes, so he dismissed them. He established a barrier inside his temple to avoid killing others. Decades later, they found that cyborg universe and wandered in that place, until they accidentally struck the green glass planet where Su Ping lived. The latter withdrew his consciousness and started to read the memories of another celestial to confirm the truth. "Sir, that's too domineering." The old expert was angry, not expecting Su Ping to be so reckless. Is he being this arrogant because he has Kai Wying and 3 aliens to back him? You would be even more domineering if you had my position and strength, said Su Ping indifferently. The fact that you're still alive proves how merciful I am. You. The primordial Empyrean master changed his expression. What Su Ping said was almost a declaration of war. Su Ping ignored the fellow. He browsed the second celestial's memories and found similar experiences. He then got hold of 2 ascendants and cross-checked facts with their memories, finding that the events were similar, only their perspectives were different. This meant that the guy wasn't lying. What did you do a few decades ago? Su Ping looked at the primordial Empyrean master coldly. The old man changed his expression and said, I'm a universe dominator anyway. Can't I have some secrets? No, said Su Ping indifferently. You betrayed humanity in a time of crisis. No matter what contributions you made in the past, it means nothing to me. What you do when your life is at risk shows who you really are. Helping 1,000,000 people by raising your hand is not as difficult as sacrificing yourself to save one person. Hilarious. The primordial Empyrean master was angry. You escaped from our universe too. What are you? Didn't you abandon the others too? At least we tried, said Su Ping frankly. We tried our best and had to retreat. Even though many couldn't be saved and had to be abandoned, we tried our best and our conscience is clear. Your conscience is clear. Only the extremely selfish would feel the same. You wouldn't have been so extreme if you felt slightly uncomfortable. The primordial Empyrean master sneered. I don't need your approval. All you need to know is that you're not qualified to negotiate or become my ally. I may spare your life if you behave. If you don't, you won't be needed in the war against the heavens. Su Ping spoke in an extremely cold and majestic voice. The old expert didn't expect that a young man he had never met would be that brutal and confident. He gazed at Su Ping and said, You're certain that you can catch me. You may not be able to catch me if I want to leave. You're overthinking. Su Ping knew the guy wouldn't act obediently unless he made a display of force. He snorted and slapped the barrier covering the temple, smashing it to bits. The void shook, and a magnificent force was imposed on the primordial Empyrean master like a heavy mountain. The latter was shocked and nearly fell all the way to the ground. He hurriedly drew power from his universe and reversed time. It was useless, though. Su Ping's overflowing Tao power tore all forces apart. He had the feeling that the young man could even shatter him directly. He's this strong. The Empyrean master was shocked, finding it hard to believe. Being a universe dominator, he had never experienced something like this. Could it be that the guy is not a universe dominator, but someone in the legendary undying state? Once that realm was attained, one could casually step out of the universe and travel in any realm. Furthermore, immortality would be achieved, aging would be abolished, and even bodies would become immortal, even if the owner died. You can't go without my permission. Su Ping dispelled his power and looked at the old fellow indifferently. You'd better confess truthfully. It wasn't easy for you to become a universe dominator, so I'll leave you some dignity. Don't force me to read your memories. The primordial Empyrean master wore a troubled expression, not expecting such a powerful existence to be born from his universe. I'll speak. He took a deep breath and gritted his teeth. We were roaming about when we found an item floating somewhere beyond the universe. I contracted the disease because of that thing. Su Ping frowned. What thing? A corpse. The primordial Empyrean master looked at Su Ping and said, You may find it hard to believe, but the corpse was enormous. It had yet to decay despite being bitten by countless Daos. I would have thought it was alive if it weren't for the huge wounds it had. Su Ping was stunned. There was a body floating in the realm of the heavens beyond the universe. Was it an ancestral god? If it's a body, how is it related to your disease? Asked Su Ping. The old man sighed and said, I don't know how strong the body used to be, but I felt that my power was almost drained after just a glance. Over the years, whenever I thought of the corpse, some sort of power would try to invade my body, and I simply wanted to expel it. Su Ping was stunned. The guy was a universe dominator with an awakened Tao heart. Could something so uncanny happen to him? What you said makes me quite curious, Su Ping said. If you don't mind, lock your memories in the past. I'll only browse the memories after you left the universe. The primordial Empyrean master changed his expression. A dignified universe dominator like himself was being treated as a prisoner, and the only choice was to let Su Ping read his memories. It was tantamount to letting someone see him naked. It was obviously an insufferable humiliation. I've given you enough face, said Su Ping. The primordial Empyrean master secretly gnashed his teeth. It had been a long time since he was humiliated and angered in such a way. However, Su Ping was beyond terrifying, let alone that he had 4 helpers.